Dr. Moffett.
So we'll start with approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The minutes of our March 1st meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 1st meeting.
Okay. Shannon. Shoot. I had a mark out of that somewhere. We'll let it go. Yeah. All those in favor then say aye. Aye. Public comment. Do we have?
I just have to make sure, is this the Environmental Services Committee?
Yes.
Okay, I do have a quick public comment.
Do you have, is it about the public hearing or is it just comment?
I suppose it'd be the public hearing. It's just regarding, the study for the Gandy.
Oh, no, go ahead then. Come on up.
Thanks.
State your name.
I'm Karen Lacqua Anderson, and I live on Clear Lake in Siren. So though I'm just over the border in Burnett, I imagine the concerns I express hold true in Polk County as well. I have a home 60 feet off the trail, as well as businesses just off the trail in the village of Siren. Being a county board supervisor in Burnett County, I appreciate the challenges and ramifications of board member decisions. Though I am here expressing my personal viewpoint. I'm not against motorized sports, and I applaud you for looking for places for trails. I encourage you to look for options outside of the Gandy corridor, keeping in mind that I think we can agree that shared thawed ground use poses safety risks. And though some businesses may increase, I think you're going to see that some will potentially suffer. What might help one will potentially decrease business for another. Economic development, I see the benefit of being able to offer what we currently have. I mean, we offer options for quiet sports, and we offer options for motorized sports. And I think I'd like to see just a really concentrated effort to encourage mutual respect for the sports and agree that they really aren't mutually beneficial on the same trail and that they hold value. You know, there's communities within the Twin Cities and even nearby that are spending millions to create the very trails that already exist here. And, we're considering changing the status of that. Anyway, I would hope that we could encourage a better understanding of sports and that each have value. Listen to the adjoining landowners and constituents, what they're really asking for. As someone who lives 60 feet off the trail, that would be a nightmare. I would seriously consider leaving, if there were year-round motorized sports. But I do see the benefit, and I hope we can find other alternatives so that we do have places for each of these beneficial activities to take place within both counties. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else public comment? Jay, are you here? You're here for,
Not just sit.
okay.
Yeah, please.
Remember you said that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
okay.
cut you off. Just interesting that we had number 5 put back on. Is there a reason for that? Yes. Do we know why that got back
I
on?
think not, no,
I think we had that taken
we
on.
can eliminate that.
That slipped back in?
Yep.
All right. I just seen that and went, why? Okay. All right, well, let's do we've got time before the public hearing, Bob, so we can start with yours.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, we'll start with 7A there, an update on the comprehensive trail network plan. If you recall at our last meeting, SEH, which was our consultant to design the 60-acre UTV ATV park, presented. Mo and I will re-deliver that same presentation. Brent Cisco, our forester, actually put a layer on Google Earth. And so it'll be a simple presentation to full county board next week. And Mo and I will sort of tag team on that. As you may know, clearing and grubbing may start as early as this fall. And the grant applications to subsidize the actual design work are due April 15th. So Tina's working on that now. The other project, which is the feasibility study to connect, provide a route for ATVs and equestrians between the city of St. Croix Falls and the Burnett County line, is we're on task. Our consultants, which are SRF, have met with the Village of Centuria yesterday. We had to reschedule with Frederick and the Village of Luck. So those will be happening soon. Frederick really wants us to meet with their park board and elicit their input on the 4 options. In your packet, I have a list like you requested of position statements. Well, boy, I put that in there, Friday? Since then, I've gotten several more. Right now, we're up to 11 position statements. These are from key stakeholder groups. That's what we're receiving. And again, with the spirit of transparency, as I receive them, I post them online. In fact, we have a parks page dedicated to updates for each of those 13 projects. And periodically I'll update them and I'll put those in your packet as well. I know Sharon appreciates that. Your list there that you see, we have the Ice Age Trail Alliance, the Woolly Bike Club, the Parks, Arts and Trail Commission from the city of St. Croix Falls, the National Park Service / Department of Interior, Polk County Library Federation, Pioneer Home or the Lawson Manor, as well as the Polk County Snowmobile ATV Council. So that's what we've received so far in my list on the packet. Well, since that list was inserted in the packet, I've gotten several more. One from Northwest Passage, one from Lake County or Country Peddlers, one from Schaefer Manufacturing. You could look at that as a group, I suppose. And we did receive one from the Friends of the Gandy, which is a key stakeholder group. Those are all online and available. And if you like, I can email them to you as well. We are anticipating an official position statement from the city of St. Croix Falls. Note that we've got one from their standing committee, that Parks, Arts and Trails Commission. Talking to the city administrator, he would like an official representation of those elected officials of the city coming from them. So that's forthcoming. Let's see.
You think the other towns like Luck, Centurion, Frederick would have one from each of those cities to a position statement?
That was the alternative. We offered that, or we sat down and met with them. So far we've met with Milltown, Centuria. We had a really good conversation with the city of St. Croix Falls, but they would like to do an official position statement. And
But each of the
Lewis-
towns, they have that option.
yes,
Okay.
Lewis took a pass. So there's that. I will tell you in terms of that project, we're learning more about some of the constraints. Our consultant is adjusting their design. This afternoon, personally, I'm sitting down with the DNR again about this project. This is my third visit or meeting with them. So I'll share those results as we understand more and how these perspectives will impact our design. So there's that.
Okay,
Again, we're on task. I think the April 19th meeting, which is the second meeting of this committee in April. I think that's when SRF will be back to
okay,
provide some additional findings.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? All right.
Oh, and that reminds me, Chairman O'Connell, our county clerk just shared with us, I know you guys get public comments periodically through the, the portal. She shared one that came yesterday afternoon about this project. I get several of those daily from individuals. And I acknowledge them, I'm filing them. And in the event, we do open the master plan, we'll be using those as resources. So just letting you know, you're not alone. And
Still rolling in.
they are.
Okay, B then.
B, I think I shared this with you last meeting. Brett and I went to the town of Sterling to talk about a number of different things. They adopted county zoning authority, needing some assistance with their comprehensive land use planning. It was a good introduction of our new county forester to this town of Sterling. And we also talked about the trails that we've been building out there. And it's actually a really good practice to have some type of memorandum of understanding between the county and the town to ensure that we will operate and maintain the trails and that in return, we have access through town lands. Because as you know, the new Jack Pine Loop, there's several areas where it goes through town lots. And then of course, with the ATV, UTV intensive park, we want to create an artery between the Sterling Loop, that 6 mile loop, to the park. However, that goes through or intersects a town land. So we took a first stab at an MOU, and this is a great template that Malia created year or two ago. And really why I'm bringing this forward is we want to move this forward because I'm surprised this hasn't been done in the past. This is a really good practice. So this is just simply a draft. I just wanted to share it with you and then get your endorsements. So then we can do a staff review, have corporation council review, and then ultimately, I believe it goes to executive committee for approval. So, and then thereafter, obviously, or within that timeline, we'd share this, get reciprocity from the town of Sterling. So, so it's pretty basic. There's some questions there. The terms, we just landed on 10 years. You can look at it two different ways. By the way, have you guys read it at all? You read it at all? Okay, it's a pretty,
MOU, yeah.
yeah. So we list all the trails in the recitals, all the trails that we're trying to ensure, it will maintain and yet in return have access. So it includes the Jack Pine Trail Loop, the Sterling Loop, and then the ATV Intensive Park Access Trail. We landed on 10 years. I know the goal is to have a long-term agreement, so you never know when you get a turnover at the local level. They might be, you might have a new town supervisor that's adjacent to the trail and doesn't really like all the traffic, and then all of a sudden, we don't have access anymore. That's like a worst case scenario. Personally, I think it'd be better to have it as long-term as possible. And we can work all that out. I know, Kim, you brought up the idea of 1 year, so it gets reviewed every year, but you know,
Can that be added that not to exceed 10, but that we at least review it every year? In the ordinance,
Well,
because now this isn't even built or done yet.
right, but
So like next year, they can just say no, because it's, we're doing an MOU and we haven't even done anything yet. And now all of a sudden we put, say, 500 people show up the first weekend and tear into that. And they go, oh, we can't deal with this.
Right, well, I don't think you can have it both ways. You can't say it's for up to 10 years, but we'll review it, because that opens it up in 1 year. So in essence, it would just be a 1-year agreement.
well, you know, I think staff can
Could be
work
up
on
to
that.
10 years, but be reviewed yearly. I mean, just.
The review is internal though. That's our internal policy. I don't
But
even-
then we would have to agree with. We would have to draft language that said the county has the right to reopen it and ask to change terms, but the town doesn't, and hope that the town would sign it in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Kim.
Well, I just, some of these MOUs are, you know, I got a whole stack of them in here that some of them haven't been looked at, like the Gandys from 1974 or something, you know?
But
And
remember,
that's what happens. I mean, so it's another one that we just kind of, it's a piece of paper, put back in a closet somewhere, and maybe in 10 years, somebody might look at it.
But if we're gonna open it up every year, that leaves us to the whim of the town
Yeah.
board switching every 2 years and saying, oh,
Sure.
now you're off our property, and then 2 years later, oh, now you're back on, and then you're
Yeah.
off, and then you're on.
It could become a weapon, so to speak,
Yeah.
for either side to say,
Yeah,
we'll do
Either for
this or
either
that.
side.
So
So then internally, should we just put that we still review it?
we
ourselves?
look at them every year anyway now. Remember,
just to
we-
to
yeah.
remind people that they exist.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so we can do that internally and not
Right.
have to do it here.
So again, all I'm really looking for is your endorsement so we can stay on task and just move forward with this. It's pretty simple, the county responsibilities. I mean, we're committing to being the primary caretaker of the trail. That means the maintenance, the signage, the fences, et cetera. We're gonna maintain the trails according to DNR trail standards. And in the event the town wants to make some improvements, they have that option in here as well. So, and then there's some, you know, liability protection language in here that we pretty much plagiarized from Malia's template. So again, this has yet to go through Corporation Council review, but just need your endorsement to go forward. Yes, sir.
I think it looks
So-
good. I like. the
So I
fact-
would, my only concern is on authorization terms and cancellation. The last sentence, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the town can cancel it in 90 days, a year from now.
Right, I mean, I haven't,
Yeah,
I did get the email from Bob, but I haven't reviewed it yet. So I mean, I think he's
yeah, we
just-
have a,
Yeah, so that's,
Still that 90 days.
well, it's less than a year. I mean, there again, if you look at the town board flipping and saying, oh, we don't want four-wheelers, in 90 days, we have to be out. I would just say, to me, it should be 10 years. There shouldn't be necessarily an out. I mean, if they want out or we want out, we should have to go to eat, you know, one go to
mutually
the other one.
agreeable, right?
And mutually agreeable, and not just saying, oh, our board flips and now we want
Yeah.
out. You know, and I think that's what the 90-day window for either one of us gives either one of us. And I don't think that's, you know, we may come to June 1st, it's the, everything's ready to roll. And the town says, yeah, we want out,
Yeah.
you know.
So we can just take that line out, that last.
yeah, it's Supervisor Olson, it's interesting you brought that up. I have a big question mark about striking that as well, so.
Great minds think alike. Bob.
No. You're the Clam Falls
Took his
lawyer,
hat off, he
so.
wouldn't.
Other than that, I like the idea of having the MOUs because it clarifies on both sides what the expectations are.
Absolutely, yeah, it clarifies each party's roles.
Especially for maintenance too.
Yeah, yeah.
90 days, huge, yeah.
And, from their position, the town, I mean, they want to ensure that those trails are maintained and are safe. And so I think this is a really good reciprocal gesture, and it really should have been done when we put in the Sterling Loop. Yes.
So this is something, Malia, you'd have to check if that line could come out of there and just have there someplace for mutual agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just need your endorsement.
Consensus? How's
Sure.
that? What do you think, Doug?
I think it works good.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so nobody's against it yet.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah,
That's good. Okay, well then Doug's got his.
what's next?
So we're sitting about right for time.
Yep.
Thank you. And as I said sometime back, I would come before the committee and give periodic updates on what NORTAC, the Northern Regional Trail Advisory Commission, is up to. It meets quarterly. The last quarterly meeting convened at 10 o'clock, January 26th in Spooner at the DNR building. We received an update on a special meeting of the ORV Council. That's the Off-Road Vehicle Council at the state level that was held to address trail project funding increases. Now, some increases were approved, some tabled, and some requested more detailed information from the county submitting the requests. And these are requests that every county can submit for improvements to and the ORV Council governs the ATV, UTV trails. It's one of the things that they do. So that's what those projects refer to that have been requested, statewide. Grants have been requested statewide. Also received a similar update from the Snowmobile Recreation Council, mainly talking about what to do about the recent snowstorm damage to trails. Some of you may remember early in the season when it snowed. It's been snowing for some time. I don't think we're into the global cooling yet, but anyway, there was a lot of additional work. Initially, the trails were prepared and were opened before, when they opened, when it first snowed, and then we had that monster ice and heavy snowstorm that closed many trails in the northern counties for days and in some cases weeks. So there was discussion on the need to support the counties requesting relief from the storm damage. Because this was all the work that was done to clear that was basically in addition to the normal maintenance that all the clubs had already completed in preparation for opening the trails. So I I wrote down some of the submissions here. Washburn County had recorded at that time about $48,000 in storm damage work. Price County, $60,000, Burnett, $30,000 to $35,000, Douglas up to $65,000, Sawyer, $45,000 so far, plus an additional $1,500 hours of volunteer labor. So NORTAC, we discussed sending a letter to the Snowmobile Recreation Council outlining NORTAC's concerns about the storm damage to the trails. Discussion also took place on increasing law enforcement funding, signage on state trails, and increasing supplemental grooming funding. So these are issues that are ongoing between the funding, the ATV fund, the snowmobile fund, and the state. NORTAC is in the process of developing a user survey targeting ATVers and snowmobilers. And remember, NORTAC is a regional group. 10 counties belong to NORTAC. We're hopeful to use the results to bring further focus to the NORTAC mission. So when we get together quarterly, of course, we try to discuss things that are specific more to our region. And, you know, a lot of the issues that the individual counties have are similar. So our whole region of 10 counties is very similar in the types of trail issues, trail problems that they tackle every day. And, you know, that's why I've said many times that the NORTAC is a great forum for the exchange of information between the counties, because in most cases, the representatives from the counties to NORTAC are people that are directly involved in the trails. And the main focus of NORTAC is the snowmobile and ATV trails. So it's great to get the representatives from each county together and give them an opportunity to discuss how they've tackled what problems, what assets they've been able to use, who in the DNR might be able to answer their questions, you know, that type of thing. We also have usually somebody from the Forest Service at these meetings, and the Forest Service rep in January discussed some of the critical bridge issues on the trails in our forests, and how long it takes to put a bridge plan together as far as repairing or replacing. Individual county reports leaned heavily on their snowstorm damage, trail cleanup, and some of the trail projects for snowmobile and ATV. Another item, older bridges with no weight ratings are a concern. And a couple of the counties have actually tackled this by enlisting engineering studies, engineering inspections of their bridges, especially those that have no weight ratings on them. We in the snowmobile community and the ATV community are kind of concerned about these things because some of the equipment that we use for grooming and maintaining the trails is heavy. And you can look at the tractors you see grooming our trails around here and go, geez, you know, I think the tractor probably weighs more than 2,000 or 3,000 pounds. And yeah, when you add up the tractor and the drag, you know, we can easily be talking 15 or 16,000 pounds. So the weight limits on bridges that these things cross are of a critical concern. So it costs money to have an engineer study a bridge, do an inspection of a bridge. And it's never been, to our knowledge, it's never been discussed before by the Snowmobile Rec Council or the ORV Council if the cost of that engineering inspection is actually an expense that can be submitted to the snowmobile fund or the ATV fund. So we, of course, on NORTAC, you know, would support that type of thing. And it's discussion that's going to continue, you know, until we find out for sure. Because, you know, here, I don't even know what our bridge count here in Polk County is on our snowmobile trails, but it's more than 2 or 3. You know, we're probably talking well over 100 bridges that we have here. They don't all fall into that category of not being rated, but there's a lot of them. So the next NORTAC meeting will be held April 27th. And just one additional comment, the meeting notices for the NORTAC meetings are sent out by the Northwest Regional Planning Commission by email. And as I have told some of you, I would make sure that your email addresses would be added to the list of notification, and that has been accomplished. So I recently received confirmation from Clem Larson up at the Northwest Regional Planning that the 6 or 7 email addresses I requested that he add to that notification list, yours was one of them,
Okay,
has been accomplished. So
good.
that's all I got.
We don't have time for questions. You cut it. I gave you an extra minute. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, ask it.
Up here in storm damage relief, where does Polk County fit on it? I read it
Oh.
times, I couldn't see it.
Okay, what, I'm sorry. Polk County did not, our trail people in Polk County decided that we didn't suffer that much. The amount of storm damage that we took care of here in Polk County, we were able to absorb into our normal maintenance and take care of it that way. It wouldn't be a detriment to us. So we did not submit any specific things for reimbursement. That's why.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
thanks.
just one comment. I was not, you can sit down. It's just a comment, not a question. I was in Sawyer County like 3 weeks after the storm for a meeting up there, and they still had 40 miles of trail to clear, and there was no way to do it manually. They had to have mechanical equipment come in. It was that bad. They'd already done
Several counties.
probably hundreds of miles and still had 40 miles to go 3+ weeks after the storm. So it was bad.
Several counties had to contract with loggers
Yeah.
and excavating people and that type of thing.
That's what Sawyer County was doing. They were contracting out.
All right. All right, so. Ready, you got your recorder. Okay.
Yeah, you ready?
Yep.
Open up
let's
the
read it again.
hearing then at 9:34. And this request is from Jamie and Sarah Anderson. They're requesting a conditional use permit to extend the rental season of their tourist rooming house with no maximum for a parcel located at 706 100th Street in section 29, town 33 north, range 16 west. The parcel's in the town of Lincoln. The parcel number is 032-00823-0000. It's a 0.55 acre parcel. And Claire's got the parcel shown up here on the screen, and that's the parcel that's in red. There are no wetlands on the property. It is accessed by a private drive going through. That private drive used to be outlot 2, and there was a deed that was done, and that to clarify that and put that into the other existing lot. They've owned that parcel since 2015. There is a little bit of floodplain on the property. It's just right down here in the point. There is no floodplain up by the house. Their septic system, you're able to see the old house there is to the west between there and the lot line. That sewer system was upgraded to a 3-bedroom sanitary in 2022. There was a new house permitted on the property and built in 2001 and early 2022. The new house has been inspected by the Uniform Dwelling Code Inspector, and that with REM inspecting to have 3 legal bedrooms. The property is on the back bay between Pike Lake and North Twin Lake. So it is a class 1 lake. And the dwelling was permitted to be 33 feet in height. There was a walkway permit that was granted in the last few years. Other than that, there was no permits on the old building. The current dwelling is at 63 feet from the water and roughly 50 feet from the west property line and 30 feet from the east property line. And with that, that's all I've got for the facts on the property. What's that?
There wasn't any steep slopes or anything
There is a pretty steep drop off in that from the house down
down to the lake?
to
Okay.
the water, yeah, and they do have a current tourist rooming house permit. And that was permitted just under the general provisions in the ordinance for up to 6 people. And that was issued on November 3rd of 2022. So that's the recap of the permits on the property.
So
And-
they just received the permit last fall.
Last fall, yep.
2022. Okay.
2022. And so we did provide a class 2 notice to all the property owners within 300 feet and the town and the lake associations. We did receive one exhibit, and I'll just read this one in. It was addressed to me via an email. Jason, my family has owned the home that is next to the Anderson property for over 50 years. We have had many neighbors at the property at 706 100th Street over the years. Jamie and Sarah are the first owners in all these years who have continually improved their property with landscaping improvements and home improvements. They are also the first neighbors that have been considerate of us neighbors and have discussed changes to ensure that we are not surprised if something major is going on. They also discussed their goal to rent the property with us this summer to ensure we are comfortable with renters being next door and to outline their rules. It appeared they put a lot of thought into renting and how they will ensure they have responsible people as renters. Their primary residence is also not far away, and I know if any issues were to arise, they would be addressed quickly. And that was submitted by Joanne Muir, and she lives at 710 and then 710 100th Street, right there. So that was the only comment that we received. And that's the end of my staff report. So
All right. Okay, so that exhibit, and she's, I see her address is Illinois, so she isn't year round there, is she?
I do not know.
Okay, I guess that doesn't matter. I just noticed that. All right. All right. With that, do we have anybody here to speak for or against? The owners are you, the owners are here. Come up and state your names, please, because it is recorded.
Good morning, Jamie Anderson, property owner of 706. Thank you for taking the time to answer any questions that you may have. One question I do have is, has everybody received the 1.5-page letter that we wrote along with the application?
So. You didn't get it? Oh. You read it? I read it. Okay. So just you guys?
I don't want to miss it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Got an extra copy. It's important because this is
If you have an extra, maybe bring one here so they can both take a look at it. Yeah.
little history of our family and what we've been through to own the property and the updates that we've made. So it speaks to a little bit of our story.
Okay, well, there we, does anybody else have any questions? Does anybody else, nobody else on the very end have said anything? Okay.
We can ask questions. Okay, so when you say no maximum, what is the intent then, to just rent all year round?
I wish that would be the case, but no, it's our intent is we have 2 boys and one's very active in baseball. And summers can be up at the cabin or not, depending on the schedule. So we just want flexibility on when we are up at the cabin, and when we're not up at the cabin, we'd like to be able to rent it out. We've been renting it out. We've had very high success because of our guidelines and such. So we're very mindful of what we need to do to make sure it's safe for our renters, but also not an issue for our neighbors, which is probably more important. We develop friendships and relationships with our neighbors. And that's why Joanne and Jim from Illinois, they are seasonal. They aren't up there much because of their location, but they do plan to retire and be up there more. We look out for each other. And it's important to have those relationships. So yeah, flexibility is the reason why we are asking for the extension time.
Thank you.
I really thought I'd shut it off before I walked in.
I tried that too.
Uh-huh.
I tried that too, and I'm not sure it worked. I could make a comment if you want to put in.
No.
Not about the phone, not about the.
Oh, we'll ask you, we might let you do that. if You have something to say.
Yeah, you can't say nothing about the phone.
No.
So there, Jason, there haven't been any concerns or calls or anything?
Just only that one letter or email that I had received.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can comment a little bit on that. I'm a neighbor.
But you have to go up here and do that. You have to, because it's a public hearing, Mr. Luke. We have to
I
state
thought
your,
maybe-
state your name.
I thought maybe you could hear it.
Let's have it on record.
But we need it on record.
All right, I'll put it on record.
So let him come up, and then you can address his concerns. We gotta do it kind of as a procedure here to keep it.
You want me to go up there now? And
Gosh,
maybe
yes, you wanna go up
that's what
there.
I'm trying to understand.
Yes, if you got questions, go up there now so that we can answer.
Nice to meet my neighbor.
I'm Jay Luke. Yeah, I'm Jay Luke. I represent mostly everybody involved here, the county, where I represent the county as a supervisor. I represent the township as a chairman, and I represent the issue as a neighbor. In fact, I owned most of that property at one time near there, neighboring all of that property, but actually. And the amount of improvement that I've experienced there just by the truck traffic that went back and forth with the retaining wall, and they've done an excellent job of improving that property that was originally a cabin when I was playing on that land when none of you were born. But however, I think I have heard absolutely no adverse comments about the improvement of that property, the rental of the property from anyone. And we're pretty active basically in communication aspect about things that are happening in the neighborhood. So my personal opinion is it's a totally a plus for the township and for the neighborhood. It's a dead end road. I don't anticipate any great traffic problems from anybody, and so definitely you have my approval if it's important.
Yes, well, thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep. So we're looking at that, like Sharon said, you just want it wide open. I know our rules set for that, Jason. That's not quite.
So the right to rent law, and that does allow for a county board to put a maximum, or a minimum stay of 7 days. So it'd be a 1 week rental period on there. If the applicant does meet the criteria to grant a conditional use permit, the county would have to grant 180 days. And we've seen one other short-term rental similar to this in the town of Beaver. It was last September into November is when it was approved. And that one, you guys had some conditions on, and I do have those conditions if you'd like to see those for consistency purposes. But at that hearing, remember, and that you guys kind of had the reward system, and that if you go a year and that without a complaint, a valid complaint, there was a violation, that they'd get an extra 20 days, and they would keep on going up like that.
Full time.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's all stuff I can show you if you'd like.
I think we
So,
should have that come up. Okay, so then if you have any questions, we'll have you come back up.
I have a comment on that too, just to make sure that you are looking at these cases as separate cases. Our property is pretty secluded and private. As Jay mentioned, it's on the dead end road. Our property is a retirement home. I just spent a large investment building a new home with the intent to live there when I become older and enjoy this area, because we love it. I mean, I've been engulfed in the community, not only in Amory town businesses, the surrounding community, all the way up to here. And we do give a lot of our renters a guidebook that has businesses to spend dollars in. And that's been very successful for our local businesses in the area, because I know the business owners and they've appreciated that. I think our community needs that. So I think looking at this as this is our only property that we are renting out. I know in the previous situation that was possibly a business that people were on their fourth. So I would like you to look at it as a completely, separate entity. I know there's guidelines with that, but this is different. So just keep that in your mind. And also I do have a copy of our guidelines, which are a lot more restrictive than the health department. So if you haven't seen those, I've got a copy of those as well. Right down to the curfew hours, we're short 1 extra hour just to keep in mind our neighbors. So again, those are things to think about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We could take, do we have a copy of his rules? We could use that as. an
And then I believe that was on the application too. That was right behind the letter.
I thought I had it because I had this one. So let's do it as exhibit to his rules so that we can use that. for that. Let's-
We have the rules. They're-
Yeah, let's, because then if we do conditions or, but let's go through the other one we did a little bit too. Because of concerns too.
Claire, can you pull up that Word document? Wasn't in the packet, huh?
Wasn't ours, I don't know.
I'm looking, did you send, it was
It would have been from Nicole.
from Nicole.
Yep.
Okay.
It would have been from the, I think I read it.
It might have been it was in the same email, but a separate document
Oh,
attached. So you had the application and then their set of internal guidelines.
Yep.
because I had everything else.
So
but
two attachments.
this was on the backside or something. All right, well, let's go through our normal ones.
Okay, so here's the findings of fact. They're basically all the same that I rattled off before. So have anything extra to add to that?
All right, okay.
So Jason, I'm assuming that it's his property does not meet 75-foot setback, 63 feet that was allowed in the
Correct.
building application.
Just a fact. Yeah, there's nothing as far as outstanding violations or anything that we're aware of with the property right now, so.
So obviously with the sewer inspection, the well had the right setback too and everything. I just,
Correct.
I didn't notice so well on anything.
Correct.
Okay. And the, but there was floodplain on the property, would we have to note that on that corner? Probably not.
It's not really relevant.
Not
It's
really
just one of the
relevant,
things
so
that
it
we
doesn't
try to
work.
point out, and I'm gonna guess, just knowing the mapping, it's probably not very accurate either in that, because it goes up on the hill pretty good, so.
Oh, sure,
anyway,
okay,
It's just a mapping thing.
okay.
Some of that area maybe is floodplain, but not all of it. That's mapped, so.
So with the findings of fact, let's go into what other conditions we usually put on.
Okay, Claire, can you scroll down a little bit? So here's the criteria, and that we're supposed to be creating the conditions to address. Go down. Can you scroll down a little bit more, Claire? Thank you. Keep going. All right, right there. So since it is a 3-bedroom sanitary system, 6 people on that would be the max that would be allowed by the plumbing code. And so that's a proposed condition. Then we've got some standard ones here, B, C, D, and E. Those are all pretty much on the property already, that the parking has to be on the property, that there's no RVs or overnight stay allowed besides in the dwelling. And then also in that the quiet hours with the fire and that at 11 PM. So F and J kind of go side and with each other, 11 to 7 for quiet hours. Just some catch-all conditions. And that with the property must remain free of citation, that there's a 24-hour contact number provided to all the property owners within 300 feet. And that the property owner is able to get there if there is any complaints to address the complaint within 2 hours, which I believe in their narrative, they've said that they would easily be able to do that. So K and L, and that basically having the pets put on the property, being in compliance with all state laws and town ordinances, if there is one. I believe in their narrative, they have had the property surveyed as part of their existing permit and have those boundaries clearly marked, so M shouldn't be an issue, but never hurts to have it. And then as far as that road easement, you know, to have that outlined, because in that they talk about in their narrative about parking on the other side, just so that we're not blocking that private drive, because there is another house to the west there. You guys have got general conditions, basically similar to O and P. Just having the sewer inspected annually, and then if needed, or if there was a complaint, that the zoning office could have another inspection of the septic or of the building if needed. Q, that's in our general provisions of that about having the land use permit number and health department number in their ads, so that it's easier for us to track whether or not they're permitted or not. R, and that is a conditional use not being transferred to the next property owner. And all of these here and that are the same as what was assigned to the Horseshoe Lake property. So none of these are different, and that I'll only point out the one that is different. Of course, they have to apply for a yearly permit like they do right now. So that's S. T is that minimum rental of 7 days. Remember, in that was to try to reduce the number of different people coming to the property and reduce the over intensification of the use on the lake. Because if I'm going to be there for 7 days, I'm probably not going to be on the lake 7 days in a row. I'm probably going to be going shopping or doing other things. And that was your guys' beliefs versus if I'm only there for 2 days, I'm probably going to be on that. And then the group that's after that is going to come in, they're going to use it for 3 days. They're going to be on the lake the whole time. Fire extinguisher just for emergency services. You guys had the seller's permit and sales tax use numbers just to provide it to us. Having an accurate site map, and that is W and Y. And then X is a new provision. That area is defined by the DNR as an environmentally sensitive area because of it being a little bay back there. That's something that the DNR is really pushing in that for these short-term rentals is because it's an allowed use and that to have that buffer put into place, except for their viewing corridor. And so they mentioned in their narrative in the application about how they want to protect the area, how they want to protect their shoreline. So that's where I thought, well, it seems like they're willing to do that. But that's the only difference in that from the Horseshoe Lake one. And then Z is that rental period in that where, you know, in that you're rewarding for good behavior for not having a verified complaint that is a violation. And that was the same text that we had talked about before on that one. So that would essentially allow them to rent for 180 days straight, you know, if they choose to, and that, or 180 days throughout the year. So they could start renting in April and rent 180 days straight with 1 week periods, you know, and if they want to rent some ice fishermen in January, and that they would just take that from their 180 days, you know, so.
So the 180 days would still be the max.
Right now, well, yeah, it's way proposed, yeah, and that, but then,
Days is consecutive, isn't it? So.
Yeah.
correct,
So
we,
if I rent out my tourist rooming house January 1st, I'm done on June 30th.
We don't want that.
right,
There's no extra days.
So-
We don't
And
want
that-
consecutive.
you guys can make it, and
And
that,
that's what I'm asking is state statute says that we could
You
Make it
could make it consecutive.
180 days.
You can make
You're
it
not- You're not
consecutive.
obligated to
That-
put
yeah, But
that.
that's what I was asking. You could, yeah.
right now, we haven't, because I believe when we were talking about this before, you thought that if they rent it for 7 days in the winter time, that's gonna take those 7 days off in the summertime, which was a pro, I
No,
guess, so.
it was
you
a
know.
clarification question.
So
So, and this is the standard one.
this is the
This is
same
one that doesn't have
exact
to go.
thing, except for, and that one provision, what was it, X? X with the buffer
Oh, access, but I mean, this
So-
is the standard permit.
standard.
And now they're gonna ask for more days, is what we're looking for here. They want to max out, they don't.
Oh,
want-
no, and that's, so the standard permit doesn't have quite as many conditions as this and
okay.
that, a lot of them are the same, but this is what you guys did for that Horseshoe Lake one, so I was
Oh,
just
I
trying to
see.
be consistent. And that's so that we
Sure.
didn't have to restart vetting this whole process again,
Yeah.
but because it's an environmentally sensitive area, it's a shallow bay, you know, barely boatable and that, a lot of weeds, a lot of aquatic, a lot of spawning grounds. And it seemed like they were supportive of trying to preserve their shoreline and their narrative, so I just threw it out there as another idea,
Okay,
so.
but now we're looking at, instead of putting the days consecutive, to just say 180 days or something,
Not,
not consecutive.
right, just.
So that then they can
Yep,
pick and choose their
pick and choose,
weekends, do
Yep.
whatever.
so you can definitely cut that out, so.
Okay, so that would be one. So that would be half a year, yeah.
We were asking for more
So what do you,
flexibility. We don't
well,
want
you'd
to
have
try
180
to,
days to rent it, okay, just say, okay.
we want the option. And again.
Let's have you come up and actually say what you want. Whatever here, so we're not arguing. So you're looking for how many days then?
Well, we're looking for unlimited,
365 then?
365
So that you
with,
can use.
with
ma'am,
flexi,
We have to just one of you talk, please.
with the flexibility of when we use that, right? So we want, the consecutive days is not why we're here. It wouldn't work with our, like I said earlier, with our schedules with baseball and family life, it wouldn't allow us to use it the way we need to, or would want to. So we're looking for a longer period.
Name a number for us. We're looking at
365.
numbers. Do you want every weekend to be rented that
Well,
you're
no.
not gonna use it?
No, I want to
Okay.
use it when I want to
That's-
use it,
that's-
but I want to rent it when we can rent it, right?
But you
We
have
have,
to rent it ahead of time, so you have to know ahead of time if it's rentable.
But with the schedule, how it lays out with our schedule in baseball, we can then let it open up or not. We can block it for our own use or not to have
So
rent,
give
right?
us an approximate, how many weekends would you rent it then? Or how many times? For a week, yeah.
We don't know. I mean, we came here for the flexibility of having it open when we want it to go up and enjoy it and then rent it when we can rent it.
That's why we kept 180 days, that's half a year, so you get to use it half a year, rent it half a year.
But you're saying consecutive and,
No, we're gonna take, if we take consecutive out,
okay,
would you use it half a year or not half a year, is what we're trying to say.
we could use it in some cases less than half a year. And then we'd be restricted to the 180 days of rental. We could have a year where we're going through a baseball season that's busy or traveling and it could be to the point where we could use it more than 180 days or less, depending on the season. So again, back to our submittal for a extension on the days. That's why we're here. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the 7-day rental is for the summer time only? Or not? Is it year round, a
Just says,
7 minimum?
It's a period at any given time, if I'm reading it right
Okay,
now.
because Jason had mentioned that that's based on traffic on the water. We don't have a boat that we rent. We have a dock and kayaks. So it doesn't make sense to me that somebody's not going to use the water 7 days or somebody's not going to use, 2 families use it for 3 and 4. So the 7 days is also a consideration to not have that as a minimum day stay. So if you're asking for days, what we would want to be able to have that open up, I would say, maybe start at 300. Give it,
At least, I mean, a number to say, because if you say 365, it's basically a business, it's a full-time rental. You know what I'm saying?
could be, but it's not gonna be with our
Well, it could be.
our
could be,
history,
but-
right? So,
But it would almost be considered commercial, then, is what we're trying to decide here a little. All right.
and then 300 days too. I mean, we're being mindful of a property that we wanna live in and retire in, so, and neighbors, like we said before. So if we have the flexibility of renting it up to 300, it might not be consistent every year because of our schedules.
Well, people think about it.
I guess I don't want to be derogatory to the people, but when you say that your boy plays baseball, those 4 years go by in a hurry and now you're out of baseball. Just throwing that out there as a father and grandfather. I've seen it happen.
I'm talking about in the moment right now. That's what we're experiencing. Our life situation is in the moment because it does go by fast.
Live the moment, so.
Yeah.
You know,
So what do you think about the 300 and the 7 days? Let's just go right down the line. What do we, we're gonna have to find some consistency with, we're gonna get a few of these. We've had one to deal with,
Yeah,
so.
I guess
Go ahead, Brad.
I'm willing to start. So I think consistency on our part, the board's part here is very important. I think in that case, the other case that was in front of us last September, we gave that flexibility to gain 20 days a year. We can be told a lot of things. The only things that really matter is what we allow at the end of the day. And I think that the state allows us to say a week. So I like what we have. I think we stay at a minimum of 7-day rental period. And 180 days for a year, non-consecutive. With the ability to gain those 20 days a year. I think that's more than what the state says that we have to allow. Because the state says we can be 7 days and we can be 180 days consecutive. So the fact that we're not 180 days consecutive gives you the full 12 months to rent it out for those 180 days. And the fact that, as the renter, I don't have a boat, for people to use, that doesn't mean the renter doesn't bring a boat. Those types of things, but I like what we have. I like consistency and so I'm for staying where we are.
Would you
Trying to
consider,
balance.
would you consider the flexibility of the days? Because right now, we've rented a couple people and there's hardly anybody staying a week. It's Monday through Thursday, it's Thursday through Sunday, and that's really important. People want to have a destination place to get away for a few days. We've had renters come from Chicago because they wanted to see snow. We've had people come from all over the metro area, and we've had some from, South Carolina. They just want to have an experience to be able to work from a cabin and just be experiencing something in a shorter amount of time than 7 days.
And they don't have to stay 7 days. We're just saying, what we're saying is that if you rent it to me on Friday, you can't rent it to Kim next Thursday. It has to be next Friday. So, you can rent to realistically 4 different groups a month. And if they want to stay, doesn't matter to me if they want to stay 2 weeks,
But you don't have the flexibility when you're renting to go from, like the 4th of July week, if somebody wants to stay a chunk of that week and another chunk of that week, it doesn't work. You have to wait for the 7 days to expire before you can get the renter back in, right? So that's the challenge, is the flexibility even in a week when holidays break up or land on a Monday to a Friday. So a little bit of flexibility would be helpful if we're going to be sticking to the 180 days. That's all I'm saying. The flexibility is really critical. I mean, just going through this the last 2 months, we've not had one renter for 7 days. And in and out traffic isn't an issue. I have 2 boys and those boys have friends. And when we're not renting it, there's more cars and more traffic on the water and in our driveway than when our renters are there, to be honest with you. So I think, I don't want to say it, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but the people that came in before us, I wanted to separate us from them. But they were in here in November and they set the table for all of us short-term rental people now. And situations are different. We have a very private situation with a private road that we take care of and maintain and invest in. So I would want you to think about that different than just every short-term rental, whether it's on Pike Lake, North Twin or Wapo, should be all considered same. We're the only renter on the lake right now. So there's not a lot of that happening around Pike Lake. It's a private little quaint lake that we love, right?
Okay.
And we don't rent our boat out. We don't recommend a boat coming, because if somebody doesn't know the lake, they're gonna wreck a prop because of the beaver and other things that have happened in the bay. Keep in mind, we're on a back bay, 2 bays off of the main lake, 2 very private and secluded, just to keep that in mind as we're thinking of all this.
But now after the first year, see, you would gain 20 days too. So the second year it'd be 200 days. Okay, so now basically then you need a little more flexibility with the 7-day part.
But
Go
I
ahead.
just want to give my opinion on 7 days. I didn't agree with 7 days the last time. I'm
Okay,
just still at that position. I believe he's correct. You have to have 1 day down to even clean the place and get it ready for other people. I just don't know how. I just feel that's too restrictive myself, what I have before.
all right, so what do you think? A number in there or no number?
I would say no number, but you can go down to 4.
Okay,
I just picked that out of the hat.
sure,
I just think 7's a little restrictive.
no, too much, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think if we try to do something separate for every single person that comes in here, how are we ever gonna manage all of that? We have to have some consistency in what we're doing. And I like the thought that the 180 days can be variable. I mean, I don't have an issue with that. And I understand about the 7 days, but like you explained, they don't have to stay for 7 days. They can stay for a shorter term. And I mean, if they stay for a shorter term, does that mean that say they stay for 4 days. Does that mean the next 3 days it can't be rented?
That's what he's saying, yeah.
Is that what we're saying?
No,
No,
still be 7 days. They just have to be, I think that's what,
He specifically used the example of if somebody stayed, you wouldn't be able to show up until that 7th day, so he mentioned that in the
Is that- is
example.
that-
7th-day period. So if somebody came on a Monday and stayed through Thursday,
yeah,
then somebody could go Thursday through
Yeah.
Sunday.
No,
That's not what-
you can
that's not
rent
what
it
he
twice
said.
in that 7-day period.
You can't. have
But
more
only
than-
7 days.
But they only have to stay like 3 or 4, but you
They
can only
only
do
have
it 4 times. If there's 4 weeks, this week, you can rent it 4 times. If they stay, whatever. The amount of time they stay doesn't matter. It's like you rent anything and you have to leave.
Typically, that's like a resort atmosphere, you know, you
Yeah.
come in on Monday, you leave on Sunday, you know,
Yeah.
and then you come in on Monday, you leave on Sunday, so.
That's a good example as a resort. We're not running a resort. We're wanting the flexibility for our renters to be able to book a month. We've had a lot of book dates from Monday to Thursday. People just wanting to get away.
So,
It's not necessarily from a Sunday or a Thursday through Sunday either.
so I'm gonna ask a question maybe from a different angle. Not necessarily days. How many renters do you want to come in a year?
A year?
How many different renters do you want in? Because
It could be 5 to 6 a month. If we were allowed to have the flexibility of days, it could be 4 a month. It could be 1 a month, depending on what we have going on.
And I think it's the 5 to 6 a month that has put this committee, led this committee to where we are today, because that is the, not in this application necessarily, but countywide, that is what has become the problem.
Yeah.
Is the 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 a month. And realistically, that is putting more pressure on the lakes, especially more pressure on, I think Jason said this was a class 1 lake. And it's putting more pressure on those lakes.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we have spent a lot of
Years.
years trying to,
Years.
trying to lower the pressure on the lakes. And I think that's where I like what we have. It's limited to 4 renters a month. And that doesn't mean they have to be there 28 days. Maybe they're there 10 days, those 4 renters, but my issue would be is to say, yep, 300 days, 365 days wide open. Now we're right back to where we
We were.
have tried to get under control, because we know that has become a major problem
Yeah.
countywide,
yeah.
you know. And that's the issue we've tried to solve in the last number of years, sitting on this end of it.
Can I ask a question? Pike Lake is connected to North Twin. Both lakes have boat launches. North Twin has a beautiful brand new boat launch. We don't recommend or have a boat. How does traffic become more of an issue when we rent versus when we're there? In my mind, there's less, because I'm out on the boat watching sunsets when I'm there. People renting are not necessarily on a boat as much as our family would be.
But they would be there all the time, so the possibility is there. If every renter for 2 months brings a boat, and you're not there, they're gonna be on, they have the ability
To
to be
bring a
on the
boat.
lake, if they're
So,
there or
and
not.
so does the public getting on the boat launch.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I've been out there during COVID. At the peak of COVID, we had the most traffic on that lake. It was one summer, super busy, jet skis, fishing, you name it. And then after that, it started to slow down. We have 2 great lakes connected. And I don't see the traffic becoming more just because of one rental on 2 bodies of water. Plus, like I said, the recommendation, it's hard to get back to our bay unless you know the lake. You would lose a prop. I'm 15 feet wide to get through to the bay, and there's sticks from a beaver that tried to dam it up. So if you don't know that, and it's shallow, 4 feet deep, there's some prop damage that could happen. So navigating the waterways is kayak and paddleboard. That's what we're recommending.
But
We've still had, the problem we have is the people come for 4 days, party hard, 100%. I mean, That's been our problem with all these rentals.
Say that again.
They come to party. They're just, there's no limit to what they can do.
Not in our place.
Well,
Not in our
everybody
place.
says that, but everybody ends up with a problem.
Well,
That's why
we
these-
have data of
This
the
is-
last 2
well-
months of cameras, security cameras and guidelines that are helping
That's
eliminate
why
that.
these rules were made.
Okay.
So that's how it ends up.
I'm gonna
So
try and cut another deal here.
I know, but Doug has something too. I'm just
Okay, go
saying,
ahead.
we both have data to go either way. So,
we're here to give what we believe in.
yeah.
And I guess, Brad, I just don't agree. You got one rental on Pipe Lake.
Today,
One today.
Yeah, okay, but let's say you even had 5. It doesn't overload the lake. Yeah, I just won't agree with that. I mean, I have lake property and I'm down there almost every day. It just, the renter takes 2 rounds around the lake and he parks there and then the kids play on the raft. So I just don't agree with that. I'm sorry.
So I'm going for another deal.
Going for a deal.
So you don't want 7-day rentals. What about a maximum of 4 rentals a month? You can rent them out 12 days in a row if you want, but that's it. 4 renters in a 1-month time period.
Unlimited rental year round then.
No, oh, no,
That was my deal.
that's never gonna happen on this chair.
There's some donuts up here.
There isn't enough.
keep
Not
in mind
enough.
what, that, because the next person that comes in is gonna say, if we give you unlimited, they're gonna say,
Yep.
but the last person came in,
Once,
you-
yeah.
unlimited.
And I know this is a thing that's gonna become more popular, and I would recommend a short-term rental committee to talk about data and things that they're going through. I think that would be a really wide, I mean, the more renters we have state and county taxes you guys are getting because of that, because we're doing it the right way. And trust me when I say this, I have friends and people I know that are not doing it the right way. When we went in for building our new home, when we updated our septic, we're above board on everything. Inspections. I have 3 fire extinguishers in my house. We have 1 hour less of the restricted time allowed outside around the fire because we're mindful of our surroundings. So health inspection, I have a thermometer in my brand new Bosch dishwasher because of the health inspection. There's things we've already done to make it right for the committee, for the committee, you guys, and the zoning and the permitting. So we're trying to be mindful of this the right way. There's other people that are not doing this. They're going and renting it out to 12 people under the board. I mean, they're not pulling permits. I paid $750 to be here today. Just to be here the right way. I paid $450 to Jason to get the other permit. And more to build the house. I mean, this is an investment that I'm completely vested in. It means a lot to our family. So when you take that into consideration and all of the stuff that I wrote in the letter, my wife wrote in the letter, and all the stuff that we've done and been through, I would hate to say that this first guy in November sets the table for everybody. That's why you have these meetings. We want to hear the differences from different people. And each situation is different. My property is different. The lake is different. I go to Wapo, I get it. I understand why you'd want to do that on Wapo and Bear Trap, Balsam Lake, Deer Lake. But Pike Lake is a small, tiny little quaint lake. Private bay. I'm not even on Pike. I'm on 2 bays back. Very private, 5 people. There's 4 people around me that are seasonal that I watch and take care of when I'm up there in the winter. I'm looking at cameras. We're keeping theft down. That's a neighbor you want to be. So again, that's a little bit more of, I want some flexibility because of what we've done and done it the right way.
So how about the four rents a month? Would that be a good average or not?
As long as I'm not stuck to 190 or 180 days.
Well, you have the 180 days and 4 different renters a month, and then the next year you get 20 days.
That's that other person. I don't want to be
It's everybody.
restricted to that
The
other
laws are for
person.
everybody, not
Okay.
just-
Not the
I
20
need-
days.
Mr. Chair, I need to interrupt.
Yeah,
And I just want you to consider that this is a conditional use permit, not a land use permit.
Yep.
And if you start saying these conditions from this other property, this other unique property we're gonna slap them down and they're gonna be consistent, then you're not considering the evidence specifically here today. You came in with a preconceived idea, and that's gonna be an issue. That's gonna be an issue, so you.
Well,
need
then
to
I would
look-
ask for my refund
Please
back.
don't
Oh, sorry.
interrupt. Me. You need to consider the specifics of this case, of this applicant's situation, of whether there was evidence of people coming in here and complaining about this project or coming here in support of this project. You need to consider this specific application and not say, we need to be consistent. Now, you want to treat similarly situated applicants in the same way, of course. So if two applications were identical on the same lake, same type of property, same situation, then it would make sense. But to come in and say, these are what you gave to somebody else on a different lake under a different situation, and we're just going to apply those conditions to this, you might as well make that a land use permit because you're not considering the specifics of this application. So discuss amongst yourselves.
Oh, you helped us greatly there. So we set up standards so they know what to come in and get a permit for. And you're saying those standards don't apply.
What I'm
That's what you
saying,
just said to me.
that is not what I said. What I said is
What?
you need to consider each application and the
Separate.
specific facts of each
So
application and
none
then
of these
set your
apply then?
conditions.
So we'd have to set up a whole set of conditions each time for each one. And then have somebody try to maintain this.
That's the purpose of a conditional use, because you consider each unique application. There might be conditions if somebody came in and wanted a tourist rooming house in the middle of nowhere, not on a lake, let's say out in the Barrens, for whatever reason. And you're not gonna have noise concerns. You're not gonna have how many days a week are you renting concerns because it's in the middle of nowhere, right? So that application
Possibly, we don't
would be
know.
different. That's all I'm saying is,
But we
talk
can't-
about-
So we can't have a set standard of,
no, you can have reference points if these are conditions we should consider and see if it's appropriate for this property. Absolutely.
And I would say, let me interrupt for 1 second. The A to Z on the board is the guidelines. We're asking for 2 of those to be different for this application, right? So we're not asking, I mean, you already heard Jason say that we've already maintained a lot of those guidelines, plus more of a restrictive guideline from us personally, but we're only asking for 2 of them to be adjusted.
you bite your tongue too, Brad.
It's not sour yet.
Okay,
So I'm gonna ask you completely, I can ask you a question of Jason yet?
yes, we can. We have
Like
to get to
something
this, yeah.
Kind of unrelated, but related. So all parking would be on the premises, right? For any of the.
Yep, that was, I think, provision B or C.
Yeah, no, no.
The 2 provisions that he's asking you to change, and that are the 2 provisions that the state has become very clear on. And that they basically give the county 2 options when it comes to renting short-term rentals. One, that a county can limit the minimum stay to 7 days or more. And 2, but you don't have to. And 2, you can limit the request to 180 consecutive days or 180 days and that open and that, but they have said that basically you have to allow 180 days. So anyway,
So those 2 are allowed.
and that, so,
Minimum. Those are the minimum standards.
So
So we
the-
have to allow. Okay.
yep, and anything as far as these conditions besides that should go back to the 12 criteria in the ordinance. And that the applicant has to carry the burden to prove to you that they meet. And these conditions, whatever they might be, it might be 5, it might be 26 like we have. But those conditions then are designed to make sure that the applicant falls within those 12 criteria so that you're not providing a public nuisance, that you're not partaking and providing a health risk. That's the intent of the conditions. The conditions are not intended and that to limit the use of the property. The conditions are intended to make sure that the ordinance and the purpose and intent of the ordinance, maintenance of safe and healthful conditions, prevention of erosion, protection of the lake, the waters of the state, and everything are being followed. So that's it. The only two provisions in that are directly limited to the right to rent are the 7 days and the 180 days. And you have those two options and that as being in there. As far as staff, if we start limiting based on the number of renters and that per month, and maybe there's a way to do this, but then I start questioning it myself and that, how do I track that? How do I, know about that, where,
And how do we
when we
keep
take and do the 180 days, you guys kind of threw a curveball at me. But I'm like, oh, that's simple. And that, because we can keep track of how many days per year we're gonna do, because on that annual permit, they're gonna come in and they're gonna apply and we're gonna say, yep, we don't have any complaints on you from last year. Your old permit was for 180. Now this one here, we're gonna write it right on the bottom, good for 200 days, and that, so that's something that we can track pretty easily. So that's just it from the enforcement side. I mean, some points to ponder, so.
So we could have the option to say the minimum stay is 7 days if we wanted, or we could make the minimum stay 2 days
Or not have one.
or not have one.
Or not have a minimum at all.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, one of the things that I'm gonna back up to when I started building and designing this place and we started building, the rules changed for us in March of last year, I believe. So that was a shock. It changed. I don't know the date and when exactly it changed, but I was framing my house in the middle of when it changed, anticipating not anticipating that happening. So we're paying to hopefully get a little bit of leeway based on our personal situation, and hopefully we've laid that out enough for you today. And we are being mindful of the lake health. We do have a buffer. We do have very little open water access down because we wanted to keep it natural.
All right, so for us, okay. We gotta decide on the 7 days then and the 180 for, well. Basically, that's what we can change. So we could take T out if we didn't want a minimum day, like Doug was actually saying. And we could start them at 250 days and then add to it or something, or 220 or whatever. And then add the 20 or whatever, because we think it's better back there or something that they can have more. I don't think we can open it to 365 myself. But I mean, citations and all this, I mean.
Well, if we went to 250,
Well,
I'm sorry.
yeah, we gotta get, yeah,
Get to the what?
to us debate it. We can't sit and barter here. I think Jason.
I could just have one, it's not regarding this application and that, but something that a lot of counties are doing, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but a lot of counties are hiring third-party companies and that to start enforcing all these conditions and stuff on these, and actually spending the time on Airbnb and VRBO and that, looking for properties that are being rented and that without permits. I know like Sawyer County has got one, I think it's Grancia or something like that as a name. It's about $6,500 a year. And that Vilas County has one that's hired too. A lot of our northern counties have those third-party firms hired. And that's why there's been a big interest, and you guys have had that interest as well on having regulations and a permitting procedure for these, because it is coming back to the county as a cost eventually, so.
Okay. All right. Any more discussion or questions from him? If not, we're gonna shut it to discuss here. Questions of the owner? None? Okay. Then I think we should shut that part down. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we want, well, we did go through the findings of fact, didn't we already? So then we're down to the conditions here. Okay, so now I guess that's the part. Right now we're at the state minimum. we're thinking this better, we could take T out. T, the 7-day one.
Is that what you were thinking, Doug? No minimum?
No limit. I
Just-
don't see a limit. I don't see how we can do that.
I mean, that's hard to do without a full-time inspector too.
But then we're saying we could rent to 2 or 3 different groups.
In a week.
Yeah.
But what's wrong with that? But you take up just a single person. I mean, and they have a week's vacation. So they get off on Friday night, they're gonna leave on Saturday. Let's say they come from Chicago. Who knows where they come from? I don't care where they're coming from. But the reason I say that is because you have travel time. They aren't necessarily gonna take 7 days to stay there. It just, vacations don't always work out that way. I just think we're being way too restrictive by saying we have to rent it 7 days. I don't even know how they could plan.
So that's,
So then, but then you're open to it being rented, possibility of 8 to 8 different people a month.
Well, you've got to have some shutdown in there to clean. You can't just
But I mean, we could
take
have,
one out, and put one in.
right, but we could,
But what's the problem with that? They're only going to use their 180 days.
right now, unless we go up or something on days too.
No, that's true, but I'm just
Yeah.
picking something to discuss.
Yeah, to discuss.
It doesn't. I can't see where if you had 2 a week, you only have so many days a year. I just don't think it's our responsibility to start worrying about an extra boat on the lake. I'm sorry to say it that way.
It's a quandary because when does it become a hotel versus,
They're a commercial.
commercial? I
That's-
mean, they're in residential property, running a commercial business. And if we open it up 365 days a year and know they can do whatever they want, that's a hotel.
But nobody said we're gonna do that. We haven't got that far yet.
No.
no,
We're getting close, that's all.
but if we open it up to no days, let's say, and not the 7, 7's where what we can do. Then we are opening it up back up to
Just
every
this
day,
one, though.
every day all
Just
summer
this
long and a few days in the winter, in the scheme of things.
Well, I'm just saying, we can leave that in there for the next one that they come and look at, but this is a different one, like Malia said. So we could take it off on this one, and get an extra day, and then no violation. I mean, see what I'm saying? So
Right.
just
Oh, no,
this
yeah, no,
one.
I
So
know.
the next one comes in, we want, the 7 days might have to stay.
I know.
We think it's too commercial or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna say at one point there was the first tourist rooming house on every lake.
Yes, and Horseshoe was terrible, the first one, because I was here. It was not a fun. So this is the first one on the lake. Hopefully it's good. And,
That
as
we
long as
know.
Jay's alive, it's gonna be pretty well maintained, because it's a one-way road. He'll block them off. He lives right there.
Be that long.
So I think, okay, so we gotta take each one different. So we either take 0 days, or I'll say 4, put like 220 days to start with or something. Give them a few extra because they're back in there. It's like any of them, if they get complaints or anything, boom, they come back. They lose everything if they get a complaint.
So our reasoning for extending the days is because they're back in there?
Or it's
What's,
the only one or whatever. I mean, because this is just a minimum standard. So far, they've proven they've had a permit, no complaints.
yeah,
So
So
then,
they're extending their regular permit is kind of what they're doing. So it's actually, they didn't have a full year yet like that other one yet, but I think they have almost their year in. Not quite. I mean, I'm going by what they said and try to justify it a little bit. But most of them write this stuff too and tell us that we still get blasted. So I'm
Yeah.
going.
so at 4 days realistically, throwing a day in there, you're saying they could rent it 6 times a month.
Yeah, I think it's still.
That's 24 days a month that could be rented. They had to clean in between, so to speak, whenever.
Yeah.
However it is.
However it's spaced out.
so you said 4 days? Is that what you said?
That's it. I think with Doug and I kind of said 4 or none.
It's better than none.
little more flexibility there than for 'em. Then now, if we go with that, then what?
Then I'm gonna say if we're gonna allow, if we're gonna go to that, then I'm gonna say we stay at the 180 with the ability to gain those 20 every year. Because they're,
180
180
throughout
is
the year,
Total.
total throughout the year.
Total throughout
Yeah,
the year.
Take the consecutive out, yeah.
Yeah, and then, but I also think then there needs to be a max on the amount of days. Of 280, whatever it is.
It'll be 365. If they get up to it. Did you catch it? If they- I'd say if they keep it every year, I mean, I don't know if we have to cap that down.
I think it needs to
I
start. at
mean, you know what I'm
180.
saying?
Yeah,
I don't know if we have to, if we would have to cap that.
because as soon as a violation would come into play, let's say, they drop back
Verified
again to
complaint.
the,
It would start back over.
To the 180.
I agree with Kim on 220.
Why would we bump up from 140 to 220 and they haven't even had a year in yet?
I think 180 is too restrictive. I always have.
I think the fact that we're giving them a chance to gain that 20 days every year. I mean, that's 3 more renters every year. Well, at 4 days, it's, but yeah. It's 3 to 4 more renters every year that you could bring in. And it also gives you the incentive to be exactly what they've said they are, good renters.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just saying, but that's the bare minimum that they can come in for with their regular permit. And they're asking for
180.
some extra, yeah. So I mean, that's the
Yeah.
bare, so they come in here and we're only gonna give them 4 days after all that. That's what I'm saying, that we give them at least,
But that's 2 more renters every month.
yeah, but even 20 days more, maybe at least 200 days. It's still 165 days you can't, so it spreads it out. Pretty good, yeah. So maybe go to 4 and 200 then. I dropped it. What do we have? How many of these 100 and some don't we right now?
174 is what they've got right now. Yep. So
How many complaints? Don't you want-
on tourist rooming houses, we're dealing with them all the time. So
Okay, see, so that's part of the point too. I mean, everybody
Yeah,
says
that's-
they're not, it is gonna happen and then it still does.
and we work on them all the time. I just issued a cease and desist order that within the last 2 weeks on another one down on Horse Lake down by Osceola and Nye. And that we've had a lot of people and that get really upset because they're big revenue generators. And then that, provides a lot of blowback to you guys when we revoke permits, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'd go to 4, but I can't move from the 180 days when there is that ability to gain 20 days a year. You're down the road.
Well,
Because we're actually at going from 4 to 7, that's 50% more rentals that they could have in a month.
in a month, yeah.
It's not stretching the days out any, but the days come, you get the days as you prove that it's working good.
That
You're
it's
not,
working, yeah.
the neighbor, you're getting along with the neighbors and you don't have a problem. That's where
All right.
I don't understand where you say it's that many more renters a month. Whether it's a different name, they're still renters. If you put it at 7 days or 4 days, it's the same amount of people. It's not, you have, let's say you have five, let's see, we only have six, let's say you have 5 people for 7 days or 5 people for the 4 days, it's the same amount. Exactly the same.
Other that I can bring 10 more people in over the course of the month.
Every 4 days you can roll it over instead of
Every
7.
4 days, I can roll it over instead of 37. So instead of having 4 renters a month, I can have 6 different groups rent in a month's period.
Right, you're saying that, but it's the same amount of people.
No, so
Right.
have 6 would be 30, 4 would only be,
So
But he's saying there'd
More.
be 6 people in the house at all times.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's the same, yeah,
it's same if they live there year round,
So
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't
yeah,
base it
yeah.
on,
but it's
say
it's
it's less
different,
people,
but it's
it's not.
different
It's all
groups.
the same.
different.
Just different.
So try and cut a deal again. Apparently I'm in a deal making. What if we went to 30 extra days? Instead of 20?
30,
Start at 180,
yeah,
but then instead of giving 20 days with no
give it 30.
citations, we give them an extra 30 days on a given year with no citation. Start at 180.
Let's give them the 220 and no extra. Just go at 220.
And no extra.
That's, I mean, we might make, I mean, that's only 100 days they can't rent it, and they say they're gonna use it themselves too, some of these people. The business ones want to do it every year to get up to the 365.
They're all
Well,
business.
220 days a year is gonna generate a lot of revenue, so they should be happy with that, I would think.
Can I ask Jason a question?
Yep, go ahead, ask Jason.
Jason, I understand we've been through the same thing for all the time I've been dealing with these tourist rentals. Is you write a citation, you took away the warning. So don't they lose their permit and then they can't rent anymore?
we revoke the permit and that's when they get really upset because their livelihood or their property, they're no longer able to keep it because they don't have that revenue coming in and that for it. And I mean, so that has, caused a lot of people getting very upset with Bob and I and Vince and then you guys getting a lot of calls in the past. And that because they're that, and I just would encourage, I did the math, so like a minimum 7-day stay and 180-day period. We understand if that provision stays the same, they would go more. And that, but what I think Supervisor Olson is trying to get to is that's 25 groups of people that are gonna be renters there per year. So if you had that times 6, that's 120 or 150 people. And that, so now if you have 4 days, that goes to 45 groups and that times the 6. So there is substantially more people than that. But I think that's what you're referring
Yeah,
to.
that's-
is-
yeah, it was
and
just.
that- so
it
it's
was a-
20 extra groups of
it was
renters.
Pressure on the lake thing. I mean, because I'm only gonna go to the lake so many times if I'm there 4 days or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think, please don't take my suggested conditions here and that, but I have to be neutral, on that. But those conditions were brought because those conditions are not necessarily capricious or arbitrary, because those are what the state says and that a property should be able to do. And that, so that's why we've got that, we kept the 20 days in there because that's what you guys had done in the past. But something to think about, the more you get down that rat hole, how are you going to justify the next one and that from being, 300, you know what I mean? So it goes back to the ordinance criteria, and meeting that criteria for each property, so. Mhm.
And Malia wants each one different.
I just want you to look at
Look
each
at it differently,
application
yes.
independently.
Yeah.
Because they're not all going to be the same and just,
See, in our minds, they're all the same because they're tourist rooming houses.
then why have an application process at all?
We do, we have one.
Right then, but why? Why have an application process
What do you think?
if you're just gonna put the same conditions on every application?
And you're saying at that point, it's just a land use permit, if everything is exactly the same.
Right, so
And that's
I-
what they have.
again,
They do have that.
right,
Okay, so now they're asking to get out of that
Right.
zone.
exactly.
They're trying to get out of that zone. They've only been there 6 months or so or less. And they want unlimited. So we gotta rail it in some because this is what everyone wants. Because that turns it into a business. People bought these houses just to do that. Okay, they did. Most of these turn into that. It's generating revenue to pay it. Used when these first started, all it was is they'll pay your tax.
Right,
All of
so-
a sudden now it's a huge business.
Sure, no, I understand
So
what you're
we're-
saying. I understand what you're
And
saying.
if you remember how many meetings we've had over tours.
I do.
It's unbelievable.
I do.
So I think we gotta come up with like a 4 to 200. Boom, hope they don't break the laws, take it away. I don't know, I think they've, with their more restrictive things that they're gonna do themselves and that. Test the water for a year, they gotta, if anything goes wrong.
So you're still okay with 4 and 220?
I would even
4 and 2,
think
you said.
that too.
4 and 2, you said, right?
Well, the 220 without adding every year 20. Just leave the
Yeah.
220 in,
Just boom, there it was. Yeah, that was the.
I mean,
the total,
just
220.
220.
I have a question for Malia.
Yeah,
Can we stop at this point and go into closed session?
Yes.
do you think we'd have to?
I would like to.
Oh,
I would like to, yes. It has to do with what we're discussing here.
It would be under,
what would that be under?
let me pull it up.
So we can put it on for next 2 weeks but I would like to do it potentially now.
To keep this one going.
Yeah.
What would that fall under?
G, 1985 sub 1G,
Would you read it though, please?
conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation.
So it does.
I'll
Fall in.
make that motion, Doug.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
I
What
think
was that number? So we get it right, Malia?
1985 sub 1G. Then I think Joe Loso is also on. So if
He can
nobody else
stay.
is on, can we leave him as a,
Okay. All right. All right. So we will go into closed session, then you will.
I make a motion, we go into closed session.
We
We
did.
already did.
Oh, we did.
Do we need a roll call?
need a roll call vote?
Need a roll call vote. Doug. Brad.
Yes.
Sharon. Yeah. You don't get to stay. You guys have to leave.
So I saw in my house. I should be
Yep,
done
Yep,
rather than
we'll open it back up.
65 a year.
Okay. Yep, thanks for your update, though.
Thank you.
We're no longer recording.
Take a 5. You're going to say the wrong, get her all fired. So. Go back to the 12 things. Do we have that number?
It is. Claire, can you scroll down a little bit? Right there. Oh,
Do we want to go up to our,
right there, those 12.
the 12 standards that we have to go by? Okay. 2, 3, we're good. 4. Motion is good, okay. 7, okay, can we go up again? 2, okay. 2 more, there they are. So to come up with any numbers or different changes, this is what we have to go
So
through.
can we scroll back up to 389? Let's see what that-
So that's basically the runoff, I think, and stuff, 3, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at it from a different. But no, you're probably. It's a runoff issue, Jason, like 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's more of a runoff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they've stabilized their yard already.
Yeah.
haven't they, from that.
Yeah, I was looking, I was interpreting it in a different way.
I didn't do pictures of this site just because I thought the aerial was gonna be sufficient and there's so much snow out there and snowbanks right now, you probably ain't gonna see much anyway, you know, so,
No.
you know.
Yeah. All right, so then it's down to, if we change the number, decide why and when and where. Is what we're at, isn't it? So they meet these standards pretty well, don't they? You agree, Doug, to this?
Yeah.
We just went through, I thought they met them. Okay. So do you, okay, so now we go back to the state standard, the 7 and 180 is probably what we're stuck at. Do we do a number of 4 or do we take the line out? Is that kind of where we're at? I mean, 7 it's the minimum or max, isn't it? Or what is, how is it stated on there? Let's go down to T, minimum rental period. Okay, so for this one, do we leave it in or take it out? Did they prove that we should take it out or do we put 4 days in or they meet those other conditions? How does everybody feel on that one? I guess we gotta start at one of these and go from there. I think they, I'll start the discussion, I think they meet those standards and pick it with the runoff and everything and the different ones, the noise and everything, that we could put it down to 4. If that would be the minimum, maybe. Anybody? Let's start with the number. Do you think it's fair? Or do we take it out completely?
I'm okay with 4.
I am too.
You guys, okay, what do you think, Doug? 4 or 0 or?
I go to 0, but
You know, we're not getting that.
no, I'm just-
You would go to 0
especially in this situation.
in this situation. So then we would strike that whole line. So we gotta decide, strike it. 7, 4. If we come to a consensus, what do we think?
I'm gonna stick it at 4.
You see a 4 then, okay. Sharon, what do you think? That they meet enough criteria to get it down to 4?
I do, I think they
Not,
do.
but not 0.
Yes.
Okay. Well, 3 out of the 4, we got down to 4. So at least we can get that number to move. Okay, how about the 180? Do we think we're safe? Going by what he has on there, get him a full year through to add 20 days or start at a different number? How do we want to look at that? And so right now they started in November. So we got 5 months in. And no complaints, but we don't know if they've even rented it. Yeah, 2 winter months, so we're not sure. Do you think we should leave it at, well, let's start with Doug, you know, at 180, or do we go a little more or less? Well, we don't have to go less, that's what they already have is 180. So they're asking for more.
I would do
You would go more? What,
with the situation that we've seen.
what you're seeing? What do you think that we should start them at? Yeah.
I go with 220.
With 220? And then the 20 extra after a year? That we would leave that in? Okay.
Would that then be 20 every year after that? Additional, all the way up to 365?
Yeah, if they have no violations and no problems, yeah.
Because we don't have that capped on our, the way it's read.
It takes 9 years, I think, if Jason can do it for me, but
Take a while, yeah.
Yeah, 7 years, 7 years.
Yeah, to get-
to
to get it
yeah,
up.
220, yeah.
Or, yeah, 9 starting. at 1 year.
And that's without anything can happen, so. All right, I can go with the 220 in that. With the 220, that's our sticking points for this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess, I think based on what we know about, being the class 1 lake, the status of the shoreline and that type of thing, it's not gonna get a lot of motorboat use and that type of thing. So I'd be okay with that,
You'd be okay with that?
220 and 4.
Brad, where you sit?
Not necessarily like it. Can I?
No, you can't. Malia, help you. You can't change it. Tell them.
Sorry,
I can still propose another question, another condition, right?
was there a first and second already?
Not yet, no.
No.
But so I mean, he's still,
Yeah, you're good.
So,
what would that be? A
so
condition?
because of what the applicants have said, as far as I've been, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we're 2 bays back off of the
Main,
lake, so
Yeah.
to speak. They're not going to provide anything other than a paddle boat. There again, I think they've said the water is very shallow. Yes, I would like to propose, and they would, I guess they would have to be all right with it, right? But that no motorboats be allowed because of the fact they're 2 bays deep, it's shallow water. They're not going to provide one, for anybody. So I guess would they be willing to be one of the conditions to not allow motorboats there just because of where it is, it's by.
I mean, for the
What's the
renters, right,
wording?
because they have
Just-
their own motor. For the
Right,
renters.
unless, I mean, for rental purposes only.
that they're not gonna rent a motorboat. I think they had, was that in here?
We do not allow, they can't rent our boats.
Okay.
Right, but then
They could
I
bring
would
their
say that they can't bring one either, because of the environmentally sensitive area that it is.
Oh, which I don't know if we can, that's DNR.
Use it. It's a fact, you know?
I
So
don't know.
I
I don't think
come
we
and
can-
how would you ever patrol it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think instead of that, Brad, did you read this? That they go by. That we put this as what they're going by.
So say
Because
that,
this is more restrict than ours.
so a condition that they maintain this level of
They
restrictiveness
maintain
on
this
their
level of the
rules.
rules. Would that make, could you read? Oh, you got one.
Yeah. It identifies it as a no wake zone and following DNR voting and fishing rules.
Yeah. No troubles with that, like, no docks, we can't do that. And I think if they have their list like this, that we could add this. That's a big, they're doing, I think, without. So, like they have the more restrictive times in this and. I
So
think we
we
should,
would add this to ours, you're saying.
yeah,
Can you do that, Jason? Have this be like an addendum or?
Yeah. Sure.
They could always add more restrictions, but not become less restrictive.
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
and they're restricting themselves, so we're just gonna say, okay, you're gonna do this, okay. This is your rules of order kind of on this, and that's what you show us, and then this would be in their file. Because this is what you're going by now, isn't it, for your
Yes,
rental?
they are
Is that our
aware-
rules?
Your
Yeah.
rules,
Yes,
Yeah.
they get that before they even. install. They have to know.
yeah, so if that was put in there as a condition, that you're already doing it,
Yes, they're-
they're already doing it, so. This way, we would just say they want it to be more restrictive. that would be something we could put in there. Would you be okay with that, Brad?
We're gonna add both sides.
Yeah, it would be, the whole thing would be in there as a, I guess the listing description, that goes, I don't know if that is really a restriction, it would just be this, the front part here. With the information, yeah, it wouldn't be both sides, it's got that part, but
The Airbnb listing description wouldn't be. part of it.
that wouldn't be part of it.
I do like that you list in there in the Airbnb description about telling people about safety around kids with steep
Yes, we don't- we
walking
strongly
areas and
suggest
stuff.
Yeah.
Identifies.
Both sides.
Go ahead, Jason.
The only thing I would clarify, Mr. Chair, when I'm reading through this, one of our conditions has the fire being extinguished by 11 o'clock PM and they've got 10:30. So we would want to take and make sure we change one or the other and that so that they jive. So
Oh,
there's no
sure.
confusion.
They have, but they could still say 10:30 at their.
And then their quiet hours are from 10 PM to 8 AM, you know, so that could be something too. So,
Well, see, this is what they send out, but I mean, we'll put it that they are more restrictive than ours.
Yep.
Would that be all right? I mean, this, because it still fits into under our conditions.
well, there's just not, for consistency, if I'm not here at the county and that
Oh.
when somebody comes to enforce this down the road. And that then, you know, and that they're gonna be like, okay, which one is it? Because we got a condition that says 11 and that,
Sure.
you know, for quiet hours and 7 in the morning and that and 11 at
Yeah,
night.
because it says per Polk County that 10:30 and it should say 11, right?
Yeah.
Either that or the proposal can change too, you know, and that these are just idea conditions. So I mean, that one can go to 10:30 in the proposed, you know, as well, so that they jive.
Okay,
So we could just change whatever's different in theirs to ours, add whatever we don't necessarily have.
Those two provisions are the only thing that I can see in here that would just need to be updated and those ones up there. And then you could still take this as your rules, you know, and that, so
Their rules, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
call this exhibit 2, you know, and that, and we can add a condition, also must follow all the guidelines listed in exhibit 2. You know, I just don't want the two not to be
should
similar,
be the same,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would change those numbers for them a little bit,
Yeah,
okay.
the only one up there, it says pets have to remain on the property and they say no pets.
Yeah, there's that one too.
Right.
So I can change that one.
So we'd have a little more flexibility, yeah.
So
Yeah, they want no
in-
pets, so that's what we put on there, yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So parking on theirs. Parking across the driveway by the red reflectors. Was that saying they're gonna be parking, someone could park on the road?
You technically own the property, you know?
It's across the road. Did you see?
It's
Oh, across the road,
driveway.
okay.
It's across, they own across the
Across the
private
road,
road,
okay.
so there's room back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was on our map too, we could see.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I
okay.
think they have ample parking. I wasn't
Yeah.
too worried there. I would, yeah, add it that would change those few things and then this is pretty much what they hand out. It should be good. Gonna make the, a motion, what are you looking at first?
I know, so just,
Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
just
know Brad
making
was
sure
on.
what we're changing. We're changing the quiet hours on ours, the fire on ours, and the no pets
Yeah,
on what we have. Okay.
Mhm.
is that what you, the three you have, Jason, those three
Those
changes?
three, yeah.
Okay,
And then are you adopting the other provisions in here about the security cameras and the smoking and stuff? I mean, it's up to you guys.
Yes, that's, the renters are gonna get this anyway, that's
Yeah.
their rules, I mean,
Yeah, that's their rules.
Yep.
So,
And then in addition to those three, the quiet hours, the fire and the pets, then to change the minimum rental period to 4 days. To change the total number of days to 220 days a year plus 20 days per year that there's not a valid complaint or violation. And then that would also be removing the consecutive days, correct?
correct.
Okay.
So with those changes, do you want to make the motion?
Let's wait and see if any other suggestions is still.
no, that was.
You got it
I just
covered up?
want- Yeah, I was just making sure we got those three things in there.
Then I can make a motion to allow with.
With those three conditions, the 4 and the 220.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Sure. Any more discussion then on this one? Put that off. That's it. Not all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. All right.
Won't take long on the next agenda topic, and that is a compliance update. I just wanted to provide this to you guys as a committee. Some of these violations have been kind of ongoing for a while. So it's kind of like a status update for you guys. And then also, I think it's valuable as you guys, as the ordinance makers and the policy makers, to really understand kind of what's going on with some of these cases, to see what kind of cases that we're getting, you know, and that if they're junk cases or if they're building cases. So just a summary on that list, there's 45 of them. 5 of them, I didn't have any way to really classify them because they've got many, violations going. The septic violations in that list that are clearly just sanitary alone, there's roughly 7. Building violations, so somebody built too close to a lot line, somebody built without a permit, there's roughly 19 of those. The junk and the travel trailers are really only 9 in that list. And then violations of the use of the property, so they're operating a permitted use without a permit, or they're an illegal use on the property, that's 5. So I think it's just a nice summary. You can kind of see what portions of the county there's violations going in. So Malia and Corporation Council is working with us on trying to get some of these resolved. They do take time. There's a lot of big issues there. And that, so anyway, I just wanted to let you know that we're working on them. And like I said, I think it's valuable to see, because I would assume that you guys probably think that we handle a lot more junk related compliance cases, but really in that, that's not much more than a guy with an improper or a failing pulse, you know, so there's not that much on that side of it. There's a lot of building stuff, so. All right, any questions on that list?
No, I just thank you for doing that.
So, yeah,
Start.
something that we don't keep updated, you know, I mean, it's already kind of outdated a little bit. There's at least 2 properties that have been brought into compliance on that list, but that's a pretty standard workload, maybe even a little bit on the low side. Typically, I kind of figure that I've got 30 in that, and that our other team are gonna have 30 as well. So just gives you an idea.
What happens with these people where, especially the ones where it's septic things, where the water's run, you know, being trenched into a pond or whatever, and they don't respond? How long does that go on? Can that go
Well,
on?
and that takes a corrective matter, and that granted by the courts, and then we'd have to get a special assessment assessed by the town, and that for basically replacement of that system. So it's nothing that's real fast and that, so, you know. Yeah, and you kind of are, well, again, 7 different failing septics and that we've tried to get corrected, you know, but Unfortunately, the state used to have that Wisconsin Fund program too. And they still got some other funding options, but the wages or the household income is so low and that it doesn't apply to a lot of people. And so there's not really any funding there. And as long as their toilet's still flushing, a lot of people just kind of push you off.
Sure.
And the same problem is that, and that some people respond to citations and some people do not, so.
Crazy.
Yep. I thought it was just a good thing. We don't keep that list updated, and that we've got several hours going through it and putting it together. But we had it done, so I thought, well, what better time than to share it with you right now, so.
So
Okay,
if my sewer basin is too close to my house, is it the homeowner's fault or is it Kim O'Connell's fault? Is my sewer installed?
that one was the homeowner, yeah. Yep, so the sewer was installed and they built a new house and that too close to their sewer. So,
Okay, just asking the question.
yeah, so,
Can happen both ways. Yeah, this guy, I think he had it up, didn't he?
I think the house slid north or something, but yeah, it's definitely close, so. So, and the problem is then a lot of, places, they don't have the room to put in a replacement sewer either, which is why we've got minimum lot sizes and stuff to try to plan for the future. It's all part of orderly land use development, so, Okay, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you. You did make it to number 9.
Whoa. I'll try to make this somewhat brief. It's been a long morning for you guys, I'm sure. Yeah, so you guys got, we'll start with the annual report. It looks like you guys got it. Just gonna kind of highlight the main things. Kind of starting the second page there. So pretty good year. As you guys know, we talked about the severance payments earlier, but we had a total timber sale revenue of just over $222,000. Kind of a mixed bag of 2018, 2019 sales that had contract extensions, some big rain, timber sales that went active this fall. So markets kind of came back this summer and fall, which I think brought some more people with those contract extended timber sales to come in. So we had quite a few get accomplished this fall. So yeah, 10 timber sales represent 647 acres were completed. We ended up finishing 3 sales, established 3 sales, rough estimate of 84,000. We finished one just after the calendar year too. That's going to be inputted in the bid openings. Just sent out the bid invites this morning. So we're going to have a May 3rd or May 2nd bid opening and then approvals with you guys May 3rd at the ESC meeting. So that's out and hopefully we get some good numbers coming back. 12 household permits across the forest and trails. At 1,400, just over 1,400 acres of forest inventory completed. We ended up doing a 10-acre jack pine herbicide release on a young plantation, about 3-4 foot tall jack pines, trying to release it from the hardwoods that are encroaching. Completed 59-acre plantation mechanical hand release, essentially brush saws and chainsaws. We got rid of all the oak and hardwoods within our red pine plantations over those amount of acres to try to release and promote them. And this was all in this was both in Sterling. Did 30 acres in Sterling of dozer scarification. So essentially promoting young jack pine seedlings. Got done in, I think, August. We finished it and just in time for the mature jack pine seeds to drop in and reseed on dozer scarification in the sand. Ended up doing 349 acres of survival surveys and then just a lot of planning and collaboration with the ATV intensive park trails, etc. So remaining on the books right now for timber sale, or it's a little less today, but this is when I made the report. We had about $50,000 on the books estimated left for timber sale revenue. Potential timber sale revenue. So it'll be good to get some on the books again in May. Go to the next page, third page. Kind of showing our financial report of revenues over expenditures. So in state aid, which is part of the Forest Administration grant, some other small grants that we get from the state yearly, as they're showing that as a revenue. They have the administration grant pays for half my salary, so that's a yearly revenue that comes in, plus the 222,000 in timber sale revenue, and then the firewood, and then we actually retained a bond for that Summers Lake timber sale that they defaulted on or gave back to us. So that's why that bond and firewood looks like a lot of money. It's just a particular spot where we retained that bond. So that's why that shows up as a large number, because our firewood permits obviously don't make that much. So yeah, total revenue just over $282,000. Won't go through the individual expenses, but total operating expenses with salaries between Mark and I, and then just supplies and et cetera, it's just over 100,000. Additional expenditures outside of just operating costs for myself was $62,000 going to the towns for severance payments on the next page. And then also we took out a loan, Mark took out a loan that got paid back this year. So essentially the amount of money that came in was as much as that went out. So pretty much zeroed out. That's pretty much it for the report. You guys have any questions on accomplishments or what's that?
You gave Clem Falls too much money.
We're probably still waiting. It's different between survival and not.
Yeah.
Check should have been written hopefully a month ago, so. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, keep trucking.
All right, so next is gonna be the Lake States, essentially the habitat conservation plan that we're looking to adopt as a county forest. So kind of the background, one, the northern long-eared bat, and then a couple other that are potential that are gonna be enlisted soon are gonna be covered under this habitat conservation plan. But the long-eared bat's subject to get signed and enlisted as an endangered species at the end of this month. And essentially what that means, that it's gonna impact our county forest and land management of what we do, because we cannot take and kill endangered species. That's why the Endangered Species Act was created in these habitat conservation plans. So with the decline in the bats, with essentially the white nose syndrome, the DNR is kind of taking the lead on this and making this plan with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And they're partnering with the counties and all the other administration, the 30 different counties in the WCFA anyway, to enroll in the habitat conservation plan under the DNR. So essentially this plan, it's kind of a double-edged, I wouldn't say double-edged sword, but we're enrolling in something that allows us to maintain our forest activities while having an incidental take permit in case something did happen. So it would cover us if say a bat did get killed on a roost tree or a hibernacula. Not that we have any known ones. So I'm just gonna kind of start you out with the worst part. That's the whole point of the plan, is to cover us in case we do have something that happened. And then I kind of got restrictions that we're gonna be part of the plan to try to mitigate from, killing more, having issues or conflict with the bats with our harvest activities.
We see, just to break it, have we seen any in our area?
We have known, I mean, especially the roosting, it's really hard to track them, right? Like, so some of these restrictions are just a broad restriction to try to mitigate.
In case they are.
in case there are, we have no documented hibernacula, which generally hibernacula is caves. And we don't foresee us ever having any on our forest that'd be impacted by these restrictions. What we could have is potential for roost trees. But the time and the energy and the money to try to find them all over the place is not, it's not applicable to anybody. Like it won't come. We don't think. So yeah, there's kind of like, do you not do it because we don't know? But if we don't do it, there's the risk. And if we do have something happen, we're in violation of the Endangered Species Act, which is subject to severe fines and litigation. So there's a risk there.
The risk is there. Okay.
Yep. So I'll just kind of go through what's going to impact us as a county forest and recreation too. So under covered activities, there's a couple that aren't particular to us, but timber harvest and related forest practices. So we implement the state tree retention guidelines. So it's essentially as a county forest with our clear cuts and stuff so that's something that we have to maintain. We do that with SFI certification and then just internal to what we do for timber harvest. The 150-foot year-round buffer on known maternity roost trees. So that's if we know, which currently today we don't know. So it may be 10 years from now, say someone found a roost tree, then we would have to put a buffer around that tree. And then there's a 1/4 mile buffer around hibernacula entrances, which we don't have any within a 1/4 mile of none of our forest lands. What's
I had
that?
to look that up when I was reading.
Oh,
through this
hibernacula.
Originally.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was.
Yep. So today with the timber sale selling this spring, we would have no harvest activities being impacted by this. But it still is a broad coverage of us in case we did have a roost tree that was not identified and did have a harvest during the time of pup season or in the summer that, there was an incidental take of that species. So don't have any plans on doing prescribed fire. So we'll jump down on that. Maintenance of existing permanent forest roads and rec trails on public lands. So this is one that we'll have more, really not too, it's kind of similar with the harvest activities. This is stuff that's already in. So there's restrictions on removing trees and doing some maintenance. But that's only unknown, right? So today it doesn't impact our maintenance on forest trails. Hazard trees are always allowed to be removed no matter the season. But there would be those, remove trees from October 1st to March 1st if it was a maternity roost. And then also the October, you can see the dates there for the hibernacula. Same thing, they got a timeline not to do it. And this, just so you know, this does not cover DOT or like highway maintenance type infrastructures. So this is county forest. This is a HCP enrolling county forest lands and its associated lands. Let's say like Atlas Park, DD Kennedy, Algren. Those aren't in the county forest program, but those are ones that I know that I need to separately enroll into this HCP because we're going to be doing maintenance and potential tree clearing and stuff. So I'm going to have to be adding certain trails and certain parks. Yep. Apple River Campground, potentially this was, back here with those woods, if we ever do something back there. I'm gonna have to be essentially with the application, the county forest program, I don't have to do maps or anything, I don't think, or maybe a big map, but these additional properties I'm gonna have to add in separately. So, but I think maybe Mo's been getting information on like the highways and the DOT stuff. I think they're gonna have to come up with some separate plan, or I don't know if they're working with DOT and the highway commissioners to do whatever they need to do for their clearing and stuff like that. So this is just particular to county forests essentially.
County forest and county. So it's both.
And yeah, if we're doing, yeah, you know, if we weren't doing any management of
Any management.
maintenance
So it's
or,
all their lands. Okay.
yeah, so but with knowing that we're gonna be cutting trees and doing new trails or expanding infrastructure, this would just cover those land
That would cover
bases.
those too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the one that's gonna be, this is one that will be impacted today is under construction of new permanent forest roads and rec trails. So temporary roads were essentially exempt. So if I had to build a little forest road to log a piece and then I close it, it's technically not it's a temporary road. But if we're doing a permanent trail, like the Jack Pine Loop goes in, say we did another artery this summer, or the ATV intensive use park, we would be restricted to the no removal of large diameter trees during pup season, June 1st to July 31st. So no clearing, grubbing, cutting if it's in a timber stand that has over that 9-inch diameter limit. So it's trying to essentially protect the pup season during that time. So I would say that this overall, the ACP plan will affect recreation today more than it will forest management. Because all of our roads are in pretty much, you know, forestry wise. If we do build a road, we generally always close it. It's just temporary or it's a skid road and those don't count as a permanent forest road. This is open to the public in perpetuity. So that's where we'll run into some added restrictions to our parks department.
That's only if they're known to be there.
No,
It just doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. Yeah, so there's no new roads within 150 feet at all if it was a known. So that's where if we have hibernacular, if we have roosts, will be the no new roads near that buffer. But the no removal of large diameter that is the restriction for the.
Whether we know of any or not.
Correct. So it's a protective period, essentially. They know that they're out there, like, essentially they are there. They're roosting somewhere, probably on our public lands throughout the county. It's just a period that they obviously gave some exemptions for forestry because we're gonna be cutting 9-inch trees during that period, but they're trying to find probably a middle ground or whatever. I'm not sure. The DNR is the one that's working with Fish and Wildlife to make the HCP, which is awesome that they even took on the work and brought in all the counties to just essentially do a landowner application to join DNR's HCP. So otherwise I'd have to do my own, or we have to do our own consulting with the Fish and Wildlife for every project we do. Mhm. And we have an inventory system, and maybe someday the National Heritage Inventory System essentially shows all the butterflies and the endangered, the KBV, the different grasses and forbs and stuff. I keep hitting that. That show up as, threatened or endangered. I think that eventually, as things start coming online, that would be our source of, we'd always have to make sure that there's nothing in the vicinity that's known. And that's how we would know, is using that inventory system, I think, anyway. I would, yeah. So, but if I look today and I run a screenshot of the area that we're harvesting, there would be nothing on our whole forest. So, yeah, and that's kind of, I would say that's the biggest thing. The state's going to have the same restrictions throughout the state, since it's their HCP anyway. The cons, so the cons to it is we don't know what we're signing on for is, I think would be a good practice to protect us. The cons is like, where will it go if there is more known hibernacula and more roost trees are getting inventoried, and then all of a sudden we got this big mash of, okay, now what? Today we don't know what that is. It might never be a problem. there's not a single county that has come forward that says they aren't enrolling in the HCP to cover them between the 30 counties and the county association. So everybody's on board with doing it. A lot of similar, a lot of them are big timber industry counties. That's, I know that the county and the associations would, if something impacted their harvesting, that there would be a bigger discussion on the enrollment or unenrolling in the HCP if it becomes an issue ever. But today, I think enrolling in this is my thought is that it would protect us to not have an Endangered Species Act violation issue. So I'm kind of looking for, is there any questions, I guess, before
So that's gonna affect your annual work plan too a little bit?
it shouldn't, what it might impact is a 15-year land plan. I might probably end up updating and putting something in up in there. But yeah, annual reports, that won't impact anything financially or anything, yeah.
Okay, so it won't do that.
No, if anything, it would be an update to the 15-year plan of
An update on that plan.
potentially, yeah. And then I think, parks would have to do some updating on some of their maintenance plans or et cetera to cover themselves that they're abiding by the HCP that we've been rolling. Any other questions on it?
Okay. So now you're gonna write this plan up and that, where does that fit into what?
So I'm essentially looking just for endorsement or a motion, motion to adopt and enroll in the HCP with the DNR. And they'll be signed on by the species will be endangered, signed by at the end of this month, I think the 31st. And we've been working with the DNR. They're gonna send me a landowner application and I'll be the agent for Polk County to do the landowner application to enroll in that HCP with the Fish and Wildlife and DNR. So I'm just looking for endorsement to approve and move myself.
Move forward on this, okay.
Correct. Or that we want to, that we want to adopt.
That we want to adopt,
Correct.
okay.
Mhm.
All right, yay. That gives you a little extra work, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah. But it should be a one-time thing, hopefully. But it'll trickle down. It'll be more work for a
Like
little
going to
little
that
bit.
big book we did of all your land stuff, it'll fit into there under one of them chapters.
Yeah, the 15-year land plan.
Yeah.
That's what I'll have to,
So you'll have to get the section for this
an
and
update to that. Yep. And I had some other,
endangered species, wolves, all this. Well, we have to do that.
so,
So we just need a motion now?
Yes.
yeah, motion to essentially
move ahead on this.
to enroll and adopt.
To enroll.
I make a motion to enroll.
Second. Any questions then? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Give you some more.
Thank you.
Is he gonna help? Is the DNR gonna help over there or not?
He's helping me every day. A lot of this annual reports going because of Paul too.
Yeah. You have to do it for all the land here too in your area. You have to
Yeah,
do one.
we'll be under the same HCP. Yeah. It
So
applies.
you have to do the same thing. Kind of.
I don't have to enroll. He has to fill out an application. I got somebody.
But how about your DNR land in our
Yeah,
town?
it's all being done.
Oh, somebody else.
He's signing on to ours.
This is the DNR summary of
Oh.
their HCP. So
So
this
they're
is
not-
exactly
So he
what
should be helping you do the work
what
that.
he's doing
Unless they
on
force you to
his
do it,
land.
you gotta get
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What do we?
Is Bob done or is he up again?
No, Bob. He does the whole division up there,
Yeah.
which is,
Most of mine is in closed session, so we
okay,
can jump to 11 with
jump
Eric.
to
and-
11, all right.
Okay.
Great. Thanks for having us. First, I'd like to offer up a compliment. This is my first time in this room. And I'm enjoying the new AV equipment and the layout. So I think that's well done. Next, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce one of our new staff. This is Trent Kitchenmeister. He is a conservation specialist in helping us with our 3-year targeted runoff management grant specific to the Balsam Lake watershed. And he's joining me today to help offer up a new staff perspective from the Land Plus Water Conference. So I'm appreciative of that. So I want to start out a little bit with a background on Wisconsin Land Plus Water and what they were and what they are now, and how they support us as land conservation employees and land conservation committees. Years ago, they were named the Wisconsin Association of Land Conservation Employees. And some years back, that changed to Wisconsin Land Plus Water when the inclusion of the land conservation committees kind of came under that umbrella. So they support our Land and Water Resources Department and other land conservation departments around the state in many ways, through trainings, additional programming, some lobbying for interests related to the work that we do, and so forth. So they're a wonderful supporting entity for us. And I'm happy to say that this year we had interest from Supervisor Olson in going to that conference. And we were able to take 3 of our staff, myself, Trent, and Karsten Peterson, our conservation engineer technician. I'll let Trent describe his experiences here shortly, but I just want to touch on a few of the things that I took home from that conference. There was a lot of relevant sessions and material in this particular conference, so very pleased that we were able to go. One of them being some DNR surface water grant sessions and how to do reporting with their new BMP implementation tracking system, and things that are very applicable to the surface water grants that we have, and the TRIM grant that Trent's working with. Other fun topics. There was a session which was very fascinating. I've heard of this before. It's emerging, but it's not a new technology in corn. But they had a session on corn hybrids that fix their own nitrogen. And that's huge. You know, that might someday influence nitrogen applications in the field for our corn crop. That's an emerging science, and they're developing hybrids that have these traits from a landrace corn in Mexico that does this itself. So they're bringing those traits from that landrace in Mexico into our corn varieties that we have here. And we're expecting to see trials locally in Wisconsin at the University of Wisconsin lab farms here this harvest season and beyond. So I don't know that it's a stretch if I said that we would have nitrogen fixing corn in the next 15 years in the field. So also attended sessions on the farmland preservation planning process. We have our countywide farmland preservation plan update coming here very soon. So took in sessions there. And one of the top priorities for me in 2023 is to get our 2024 annual tree sales online to create many efficiencies, from ordering and information out to the customers and just that deposits, and it makes so much sense. So there was a session on that, and other counties were describing the online stores that they use and kind of the process and just their lessons learned there. So that was really big. Karsten Peterson attended, being an engineer technician. He took in many of the technical roundtables and was able to meet engineering staff that he's talked to over the phone or has virtual meetings. So there's a really important networking opportunity with these conferences, and he took full advantage of that. Also, to maintain his job approval authority, to be able to design and sign off on conservation practices, he needs a certain amount of professional development credits over a 2-year cycle. I believe it's 20. And so he was able to get a number of those there. So with that, I'm gonna let Trent give you the perspective of a new employee, and since some of the sessions were kind of catering to that.
Yeah, very much so. So I was lucky enough to attend this this conference from March 1st to the 3rd. And I found out that all 72 counties were present at this conference. And what a treat that was, because I was able to meet professionals from just about every county. I think I was able to talk with a handful of people from each one, it seemed like. And for me, working on this trim grant is pretty huge to be able to talk with a few individuals. One of them being from St. Croix County, so just south of here, working on their own trim grant and learning their successes, learning what hasn't worked for them, what they're going to try this next year. That was able to give me some ideas as to what I can implement here in my first year, working on our trim grant here. But other sessions that I went to were centered around communication for field staff, working with landowners and agricultural producers, learning how they think and how they finance their operations is really huge, because implementing some of these practices can be expensive. And while we do have this grant to offer some financial support to them, they are on the hook for 30% of whatever that total cost is. And learning how they budget out their year and how they use their cash flow to finance their operation allows us to build a more effective plan for them so that they're able to afford these practices, which benefits our watershed here by increasing water quality and keeping erosion off the landscape as a whole. A few other subjects I was able to go to there were how we were able to connect the federal conservation plans here at the local level. Gave me some ideas as to who I can contact from the DNR and NRCS to get more information so that I'm not left in the dark on how they function and if there's more funding through them if we aren't able to offer cost share to landowners who might be just outside the watershed. But yeah, as a whole, I thought it was a great experience for myself to help me grow as a professional, getting in there, meeting people, making contacts, seeing my name out there. Just a great overall experience being there. So
we're very appreciative of the support and the opportunity to go to trainings and conferences like this. It's pretty valuable for our staff to network, and I'd like to make mention that, you know, it's not only for land conservation employees, it's also for committee members too. So it's available to you all, and it'd be really great to engage into those sessions as well. So I might put Supervisor Olson on the spot here a little bit. And just, yeah, and I would love to hear what your thoughts were on the conference. It was a pleasure to spend some time with you and have some conversations regarding these topics as well.
So yeah, I thought, having never been there before, I truly enjoyed it. Shockingly, I didn't agree with everything I heard, but that's all right. We'll work on that. Yeah, me and Eric had both attended the nitrogen fixing corn one. I thought that was very interesting. Like you said, it isn't going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's going to happen down the road. And kind of the interesting thing was what was it? I think over half of the nitrogen is man-made nitrogen. Urea put on that grows the crop feed, 7.5 billion people. So it's a, it's a big issue if just a small portion of that could be made up within a corn plant. From there, I went to a agroforestry where I learned about raising cattle down in Monroe County, I believe it was. It'll tell me here somewhere. Yep, Monroe County. Did a farmer would put in 1,200 trees on a slope that was pure pasture, too steep, but yeah, 1,200 trees, 3 different rows of them, 3 different types of trees, fast growing trees, slow growing trees. I understand the goal. The goal was so that when these cows pastured, they would have more trees to go lay under. Talked to one of the presenters afterwards and said, well, I've raised cattle for 100 years. We did on our farm, and they all go lay under the same tree every day because a cow is a herd animal. I applaud them for their effort. Time will tell if it works or not. But cows like to lay under the same tree. Went to a groundwater vulnerable contamination. One of the 2 meetings that I was at that I would have just died to know a little more before I got there. Because I wasn't, can I say I wasn't impressed with the presentation. We're using, in that presentation, that individual used almost a 35-year-old map for ground contamination, of which I now have, but didn't really mention to say that on the bottom, this is not a scientific map. This is guesswork only, it's for education. Unfortunately, in the last 2 months, I've seen that map used as God-given science in a number of presentations. Aside here, went listen to Kewaunee County as well as then Iowa County, Lafayette County, Grant County in the SWIG study, Lafayette, Iowa, and Grant. One thing I took away from that, it was 2 different presenters in the same meeting, but the one from the SWIG study in Lafayette, Iowa, and Grant was the fact that when they done these studies and checked wells, the majority of the wells that were contaminated came out with human listing. So it was 3 counties. They had scientists everywhere, to come in and speak. And the presenter said it was quite disappointing. At the end of the day, they figured they had the gymnasium was set up. They were really ready to give this huge presentation. And at the end of the day, nobody showed up because what it found is humans were to blame, agriculture was to blame, nature was to blame, everybody was to blame. So there was no one person. So in the scheme of things, they set up for maybe a couple hundred people and got a handful of people. The extent of that, Kewaunee County done a study, had an independent third party come in, do some isotope testing, which is extremely expensive to figure out the age of nitrogen in well water. It came back that in those few samples that they have done very randomly, it was all old nitrogen in the wells, 20 to 60, 70-year-old. But the response to that was the study was wrong, which was a little bit disheartening. And maybe the best one I went to was when good projects go bad, which was county staff, Eric, in the scheme of things, standing up saying, here's the pictures of where things started out good and it's all downstream. It's all downstream now and these things happen. Just to, if nothing more, to say, hey, it happens. Here we are, we're in the middle of a stream restoration project and we got 6 inches of rain in 7 hours. It all washed away. We just start over. It happens to everybody. But I would say the greatest takeaway from going was spending time with staff, getting to know Eric better, getting to know Trent and Karsten. Found out Trent lives 4 miles from me.
Clam Lake, are you crazy? Oh my God.
He's in District 2. But,
I suppose he's still looking though, isn't he, for a house?
well, yeah, well, in District 1, of course. Outside of Clam. So no, just the interaction with staff, you know, having sat in this chair for 7 years, we don't see that side of our division a lot in this room. So just outside of that, being able to have conversations with them, learning what they do, have discussions, you know, of what I didn't necessarily agree with it, that, you know, it was great. I truly enjoyed it.
And they actually argued with you. They didn't fall into the Clam Lake, you're right stuff.
They know I'm right.
Okay.
You know, I think Supervisor Olson is just being kind to us because he knows that if it wasn't for us, he may not have got out of Chula Vista alive.
Yeah.
Because that place is huge and he might still be trying to get out of there.
So
We all got lost.
Without a doubt. Friday morning, I went down, walked up to the table and the guy said, "Good Friday morning." I said, "Not really. I've been here 3 days. I don't have a clue where I'm going."
It was.
You just followed the people in front of you and hoped they were going to your session.
That's
Or
right.
you went to theirs, one or the other, because
You were gonna end up somewhere, whether
What a-
where you wanted to
what a-
be or not. We didn't.
what a screwed up motel.
It's very large.
I've been going there 10 years, about 8 years now. I still don't know how to find it.
Yeah, I asked somebody where some room was. They were like, "Go up this first set of stairs, but don't go up the second one, and then take a left, and then take a right, and then take a left, and you'll be there."
Yeah, you'll never.
It's like, yeah, no. And I should have brought my purchase
Oh, yeah, that would have been the ultimate
to,
test. Yeah.
to show. Eric had to purchase it because it was online or something. So, but
Supervisor Olson
I-
contributed to the silent auction.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And so I bought, no one would believe this here, but I bought a cutout of a metal cutout of a bear with 2 pine trees. And on Wednesday, I looked at it and said, "That's a bear." And on Thursday, I looked at it and said, "That's a cow." So Thursday night, when the auction was gonna close, I told Eric, I said, "Come and look at this." I'm like, "What is that, Eric?" He's like, "It's a bear." I said, "Look closer." How? So when we
Yeah.
paid for it on Friday morning, the lady was, "Oh, that's really nice cutout of a bear." And Eric said to her, "Look at it again." And she said, "It's a cow."
Where is it? You gotta bring it in.
Fine,
Yeah.
fine art will keep you guessing.
I
Well,
did that
again-
land and water auction, online auction thing last year or the year before. I got a football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a Green Bay Packer signed football. I forgot I have that.
So no, it was a good convention, even if at times the speakers were wrong.
Yeah.
But you see that at conferences. Sometimes they're really good presenters and they have good information.
they were
and
good
sometimes they do-
presenters.
Sometimes not as good.
You know, no, it was. It was well worth your money.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys. Thank you.
Nice meeting you.
All right, let's get in our, Joe is still here too, so we can get into our closed session and get this.
I make a motion, we move into closed session.
Second.
Doug?
Oh, you're gonna let me this time? Alrighty. Kim,
Here.
Brad,
Here.
Doug.
Here.
And Sharon Kelly. Here.
Yeah. As a voting member.
Otherwise, we won't have.
A quorum.
He said he had to go.
His partner, and then get married, she had passed. She had.
Who's that?
That's
John's. John's girlfriend.
I just.
Today, Wednesday?
No, he's fine. Sherry is. Natural left. Oh, there's nothing on the left. Where she speak, but it's, and
Excuse me.
All right. I don't know if we need a motion, I mean, we do by consensus, can't we?
What, number 13?
No, for have you to move on.
Move on with that.
When we come out of closed session, and the land part, we were just gonna move forward on the decisions we made there.
And I make a motion,
I don't think we need a motion for
we
that.
do to move things forward to him from what we decided in the closed session. Isn't that true?
I don't think we need a motion.
I think it would be a good idea to say that you want to
Direct me to-
direct staff to,
I make a
Off-
But we do
motion.
that as a consensus. We can say by
But you need-
consensus, we don't need a motion.
well, you can
You're losing weight.
just say it, just say it. You don't need to
Let's
balance
do it this way.
it
I make a motion.
Have it on at least.
We proceed with the swap of the 40 acres up in Lorraine Township in accordance with the condition that Brad had, that we just make a offer to trade, period. And to pursue that
With the DNR.
with the DNR, that's what we traded.
I'll second it.
All right, any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. There,
Thank you.
the chairman got you. Okay, 13, what else?
Looking at our work plan, which is in your packet, tax deed listings, I guess that's really, sort of in a holding pattern with Act 216. So really what we're looking at is what we talked about previously. And I can,
Do we know if there's quite a list though? Should we just see the list?
well, I'm sorry,
Should we just see that list? Is
What
it getting
list?
out of hand? Is there getting to be quite a few of them?
list of what?
Up tax deed land? Because now we're going on what, the second or third year? We haven't done anything. How big
This
is
is
that
the
list?
first year.
First, did we
this is
do
the
it last
first year.
To the,
Right? We
The
did some
way-
last, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the
We did,
first year.
okay.
We did some last year.
Well, again, back to the work plan, we got that, we got the Gandy's dancer study update. Again, our consultants are coming the second meeting, which is April 19th. The cover crop inventory that Dean and Eric Wojcik do, they're presenting on April 19th. Renewable energy ordinance, we could put on there for April 19th, giving everyone plenty of time for review. I guess what I'm sort of pushing for, in particular, there's no public hearings, no applications through zoning for a public hearing for the 5th of April. So I'm kind of advocating for a punting, not having the first meeting in April unless something emerges. Then we can definitely create an agenda. A lot of the items in our work plan will be on the April 19th agenda. We have nothing with zoning. So I'm just seeing how receptive you are into punting, not
at least
having,
for now, the first one, because forestry will come back, like he said, doing the second meeting.
no, that's May.
Well, that's all in May, okay.
Yep, remember that got
Oh, yeah,
pushed
yeah.
because the loggers couldn't go out and bid because
Yep.
of the weather. So the timber,
Who's out to May? Okay,
approving those timber sales are in May now.
yep, I see that. Well, we could do that because it's a 3-week kind of a jump here with. Yeah,
Okay. So tentatively just not have a meeting in the first on
First one
April
I'm looking
5th,
at,
yeah.
unless it gets like
Okay.
it's gonna be too big or something, but otherwise, yeah. Why not? Yeah, so April might only have one meeting.
Perfect. We should have the renewable energy ordinance reviewed by then for Malia. Like I said, our consultant will be here that second meeting. Eric will do the cover crop. And whatever else emerges.
Then if there's a public hearing or anything, that'll come up once there isn't any right now, that, otherwise it'll be like the general government.
Good.
Right.
Half-hour meetings, yeah.
Jay would vote against that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
There's no way they could be there.
Okay. Chairman O'Connor, real quick, can I put a plug in? For those supervisors who have not signed up for the goal setting, prioritization piece. Supervisor Olson has and Chairman Luke has, but I don't think you have or Supervisor Rowdy.
Might want to do that.
Today.
Signed up, yeah.
Remember the letter?
Maybe they're just leaving it all up to me and you.
Oh, that's fine. We could handle it, I'm sure.
I'll have Tammy
There'd be a
call you
little
down.
controversy, I'm sure.
Tammy call you tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have her call you tomorrow. Kim, you're the most flexible, so we'll fit you in wherever.
I know, I'll come to get a permit and they'll grab me.
Go eat now.
I threatened this one. A motion to adjourn, does somebody have that?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Did I order my?
This word, is not in our vocabulary anymore. We gotta get rid of that.